The fall is upon us and the winter thereafter, but don't let the jeans and the sweaters and the sneakers betray you. Your body hair still needs to be tamed. If not for you, then for those you love. But there's good news. My friends at Manscaped are experts in male grooming. Now, I'm a true believer in the performance package for one reason above all others. The Lawnmower 4.0 Buzzer. This body hair trimmer is good enough to act as my beard trimmer as well, and I use it multiple times a week because I am indeed what you might refer to as a Manscaped believer. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code SACRED at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code SACRED. That's SACRED at manscaped.com. That's MANSCAPED.com. Make your balls a priority this fall. Choose Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 168. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my handsome son, Chris Raygun. Chris, you're in your new digs here.
Yeah.
How does it feel?
It feels, good. It's a lot. We were just talking about it a little bit before, but like it is so much hotter in New York right now than it was there, than it has been in California for the last like several months, that it's like I was just completely awestruck. Like I forgot that heat was possible here to this extent. And it really is that humid, like almost like you're swimming just to walk to the mailbox. It's like it's something. But
yeah.
But thankfully, yeah, my stuff arrived like yesterday, so I've just been like a madman throwing things together. So if it looks a little haphazard, I got rid of the Watch Dogs.
Yeah, very good. Well, I had no problem with the Watch Dogs poster, but I think it drew many inquiries.
I had a problem with the Watch Dogs poster.
Yeah, fair enough.
But,
well, good to see you settled, and welcome. And of course, Dustin Furman, executive producer and co-host of Sacred Symbols. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing.
Why am I speaking so weird? Like, how are you doing?
It's okay.
Like,
Sometimes
like,
it
I've
happens.
never spoken English before. Yeah. Well, what's happening in your life?
I'm feeling great, Colin. As a lot of the audience knows, this is just a small thing, but it feels like a big thing. Apple featured us in a tweet for their podcast thing, and to see all the overwhelming fan support of fans was awesome. But also just some of the deliciously salty comments out there. I was well fed last night. Just read
I don't know that I even saw them all, but
yeah,
definitely very well fed. I don't know if I saw them all. I mean, it's the usual suspects.
Yeah,
Ian Walker. Who else?
Grayson?
Nathan Grayson. God, he sucks. But it's just whatever. There was it's so strange because it's like, how do people over and over again come to us and tell us how, some people like how horrible these guys are, and then this just happens constantly. Like we don't do any. It's just so strange. Like I think I felt like that particular instance was illustrative more than most.
Yeah,
and I think people kind of got the picture. It's like, what are you even upset about? The one piece of interesting feedback we got was, and it is, I think, good feedback, but I'm not going to take it. And it's that people are like, well, your name isn't on the podcast, like art. And I'm like, but I like that. Dude, like I like that. I like that we have no names on our art. And it's like, just you'll find it or you won't. I don't know that the art having it matters as much as that it says Colin, a PlayStation podcast afterwards, which, by the way, and I've said this in the past, everyone has copied us because we were definitely doing that before anyone. Now everyone does Colin a something podcast. So
here's the thing, Colin, about the art. Holly brought up a very great point because I was telling her about that comment, and she's like, well, look at the most influential brands out there. Apple. Does it say Apple under the Apple logo? Does it say like Starbucks? They got rid of the letters around their thing. And I'm not saying we're to that level, but Dagan did such an amazing job with our art that I feel like it is like somewhat amongst our industry now iconic. Like you see that and you know it instantly. So I'm like,
well, certainly people that hate us recognize it, which is amazing because I have no idea what they do, for podcasting. So like, yeah, you're right. I have to say, I mean, I love the CLS logo and I love the Fireside Chats logo, and that's retired. Defining Duke also has a great logo, but I am very partial to the Knockback logo. Because that was a logo I technically designed in some way the CLS logo and the Knockback logo. Those were kind of my visions, and Dagan executed on them. I just love the arrow bouncing back. I think it's cool. It reminds me a little bit of like Arkanoid or something too, like some symbolism from that as well. But yeah, it was awesome to see that. Thank you to Apple. We'll see. Some people had funny comments like, well, the reason that Nathan Grayson and those guys going at us unprompted bothered me was because I know the intent is to get Apple to remove us from that list.
Right.
It's not like it's not that I'm mad people don't like us. It's that you are quote tweeting that so that they take us off this so-called patch notes section where we're promoted. I know what time it is. I mean, I'm not fucking stupid. So that's what really annoyed me.
It's especially annoying just because it's so like obviously like unprovoked. It reminds me of a lot of time. Like sometimes people will like tweet at me, right? Or like literally like talk like shit online, and then I'll respond, and then they'll be like, "Oh, how could you respond to me like that?" It's like, what do you like? What? Why are you even saying anything if you're not expecting me to say? Like, I don't understand the logic of like us being at fault for replying to criticism.
Truly,
right? Like, I can't fathom it.
And dude, I saw some of the quote tweets were people that worked for Fanbyte, and they were like, "LOL, yikes." I'm like, bro, your company is owned by Tencent, which is card-carrying CCP members that's committing genocide. LOL, yikes. Like, come on. I don't know. Yikes. Just like, dude.
Yikes, communist money.
So dude, the people that we do rub the wrong way are the right people to rub the wrong way.
Absolutely.
I think.
Very well said. So yeah, we're appreciative of that. And like I said, the criticism's fine. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I do care when I know the intent is to try to get us in trouble with Apple, just like people try to get us in trouble with other people, things too. It's like, don't fucking threaten me. I know what you're doing. So I'm going to strike back, and I'm not going to let this go unfettered. Now, Apple can, if they see this at all, and I doubt they will, they can go through everything that they want, but I'm not going to just let you say that uncontested. It actually reminds me of like, we get bad reviews on Apple sometimes, which I'm totally fine about. I don't look at them very often, but I did report one of them and got them removed because I was like, this was a couple of years ago, because I was like, this is completely ridiculous. This has nothing to do with our show at all. And they were like, yeah, you're right. And they took it down. So it's just one of those things where I want it all to be on the level. And as usual, these cowards try to passively act towards an end. And that is, again, the only problem. But it was a great honor to be on there. And obviously, I feel like we've earned that place. I don't, no offense, I don't think any PlayStation podcast is really coming close to us in quality.
And Colin,
that's my take.
One thing that I wanted to add, just because we're spending a lot of time on the negative, the few people that were negative, but I seriously was shocked by the, hundreds of retweets and replies and people that were just rallying, like, finally, this is some recognition from, a big boy like Apple. And so we, thank you. The only reason this podcast is on there is because of the fervor of the fans. So thank you.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but I'm glad you did, because that allows us to also, thank everyone for their kindness. And we couldn't do it without you. Also, we couldn't do it without you on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. More than 12,000 of you support us over there. And we thank you so much. I mean, for that incredible support. Remember, you can get early ad-free access to every episode of Sacred Symbols each and every week, plus exclusive access to 2 episodes a week of Sacred Symbols Plus. And we're really excited about that. Edward Bustos wrote in and said, "Hey, CDC, just wanted to give a shout out to Dustin for his SS Plus with Jimmy." That's Jimmy Champagne. "He mentioned that the PS4 Pro noise issue was from thermal paste and not the fan, so I took mine apart and saw that 90% of it missed the chip. I can barely hear the fan now after testing it. Too bad it took so long for me to find that out, since the jet engine noise pushed me to primarily play on One X at the time, and now Series X/PS5. Just wanted to say thanks for the info." So very well done, Dustin, for having that. We've had a few. Well, so talk to us about a couple of these episodes. We talked about Jimmy already, but you had another interesting episode, somewhat contentious with some people, although that's not going to stop us from doing these episodes.
Right.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, last week we had MBG on. He's a PlayStation-centric YouTuber, and him and I had a great conversation about we had the PlayStation event, and we broke down the games on Sacred Symbols, but I wanted to have an extended conversation about Sony's strategy. And so that's, what I brought him on for. And it was just interesting to have another unique take. Some people have problems with him, and that's fine. But to me, it's one of those things where, people applauded us for Philip and platforming different types of people. And sometimes you're going to like that, and sometimes the shoe's going to be on the other foot. So I had I felt like the conversation was very pleasant, really great. Shout out to MBG. He's a listener of the show. And, if you didn't like it, that's okay too. Just don't be insulting in the comments. There were many positive comments though. So,
there were, but that was God, I feel like we're being a little negative at the top, but
yeah.
But yeah, that it didn't. Again, that's another example where the feedback doesn't bother me. It's the tenor of the feedback or the nature of the feedback missing the forest for the trees. Because I'm not even going to get into it on Patreon, but it's like I think of, again, I bring these guys up all the time, the people I love, Sam Harris or Lex Friedman or whatever. When I see a podcast pop up in the feed from them and it's just not a show for me, I don't immediately write to them and say, like, what the fuck are you doing? Why did you have this naturalist on? I wanted to listen to a podcast about math. And it's like, well, I'm sure there'll be a math podcast next week on Lex Friedman or whatever. So that was the only thing where it's like, you got to let people operate and understand that not every single thing can be for you. We're trying our very hardest. So we also want to keep in touch with you as far as who you want to see on the shows. And we're going to have a lot of more interesting guests. I have some interesting people lined up coming on the show soon. Benji Sales is coming on the show soon. I'm going to be talking to Dylan Cuthbert, founder of Q Games, all about his history with PlayStation and Pixel Junk and Tomorrow Children. It's gonna be dope. I'm gonna have Richard Lewis on soon, esports, British esports commentator. A lot of good conversations coming up. I feel like we'll have something for everyone. So come and join us on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Thank you so much for that. Nice reviews on iTunes are appreciated. Support us on YouTube, whatever you can do. And on that note, Caleb Bryan did write in, and I felt good about this. I wanted to read this. He said, "Hey guys, I am currently in one of those gaming ruts that is often mentioned on these shows where life has just dragged away all of the enjoyment out of my hobbies. With some anxiety-inducing life events coming up, it's been a challenge just keeping composure enough to make it through each week. But LSM shows have been super helpful in making me smile and laugh through the despair. Just wanted to say thanks to every one of you guys for your endless dedication to these shows. I am eager to watch and listen to the recent live event and hope to one day make it to one of those in person. Keep up the excellent work." Thank you, Caleb, for your kind words. We will have more information on the live shows, in the coming months.
Yeah.
I wanted to just read this out because, and Chris, we talked about this a little bit, and we have talked about this a little bit. It's nice that our show can be like an escape for people. I get it. And like, what do you think about this kind of feedback when we get this? To me, this feels good. Obviously, it feels good to be complimented, but it feels good that the podcast is substantive enough to be there, as opposed to just something that, acts as, for a lot of people, a temporary distraction. Maybe it can be more when you're in moments of most despair. And trust us, we know despair on this podcast.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. Like whenever, because this is one of those things where it's like, I think of like the things that I appreciate most in like entertainment or anything. And it's always stuff that was like kind of there when shit was just not the greatest, like shows that just ended up being like comfort shows or, comedians or, some podcasts. And it's cool to know that you've contributed to that for so many people. I think it's just like a really invigorating thing to hear. It's like a really nice, it's good to know because it's really motivating, I think, like on our side.
I agree. And so I wanted to just read that to thank you. We're happy to be there for you. Very appreciative of that kind feedback. Keep your head up. Yeah. Things will improve. I do believe that. Keep your head up. Nigel wrote in and said, "Hey fellas, not a question, just a comment. Analysis on game studios often yields stories about the individuals who call that place home. As an 8-year industry vet, I love the consistent effort at LSM to highlight the humanity behind every news development, positive or negative. I hope I'm not coming across too gushy, but I got to say it's a breath of fresh air in an otherwise musty space with nerd culture." Thank you for that, Nigel. And I wanted to read that one out to continue to say, if you work in the industry, reach out. I have conversations with many of you behind the scenes. Sometimes we talk off the record. Sometimes we talk on background. We rarely talk on the record, but I'm always happy to make connections with people. In fact, those connections helped with one of the stories that we're going to read in a little while, for me to get some context on something that I'll share with you guys that you don't even know about. But I wanted to thank you for that, Nigel, as well. And yeah, so if you work in the industry, please do reach out. Now, a couple of other comments. I wanted to make a quick correction. We had a lot of people write in about this. Colin Kelly wrote in and said, "Hey guys, just a quick correction from your interesting conversation around John Gibson last week. Colin, you said that Ireland was around 80% pro-life when in fact we voted 67% in favor of legalizing abortion in 2018. You perhaps just used it as an example, but I thought I'd write to clear it up. Thanks for having the difficult conversations." Yeah, you're right. Wasn't talking about the referendum. I actually knew about the referendum, but didn't know it was that overwhelming. It's more talking about the Catholic angle. When you have a country of people that feel a certain way, you can tell me if I'm wrong. It's not really important to the show anymore, Colin, but I will say that my assumption was always that Ireland voted that up because they were able to separate church from state. In an effective way. But you're right. Should have been more clear, and I appreciate that correction. And yeah, so I was curious about this. Jobin wrote in and said, ADC, after hearing multiple terrible takes and patently false information on IGN podcasts lately, the most recent examples being that Wolverine Origins was bad. I mean, that's not really, I mean, that's a horrible opinion, but that's an opinion. And that the new God of War game was tied to a Marvel copyright. It got me wondering two things. How busy are they keeping those people that they're making such obvious and preventable blunders? And what is CLS's obvious successful method for keeping those kinds of mistakes as infrequent as possible? Acknowledging them.
Yeah.
Like we just did. Very important. I don't understand why more podcasts don't do that. Right? I was wrong. It doesn't take much to do something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know why. I mean, I can't deal with myself not dealing in the realm of corrections at the top. Because if I was listening to me and I was like, this motherfucker was totally wrong, and then he just pretended that he wasn't, it's like, that doesn't rub me the right way.
Yeah.
So everything's coming together. We're doing very well, I think, with the corrections, but keep writing them in so we can get everything above board. Thank you for writing in, Jobin. All right. Genesis Point wrote in and said, hey, CDC, on the last Sacred Symbols episode, Chris did a pretty bang-on impression of Kermit the Frog. On past knockbacks, Colin also busts out a good Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. So my question is, what impressions can Dustin do? Keep up the great content, Dustin.
You know, impression. I'm not like I'm not an impressions guy, but I was told that when I pulled out the Trump voice a few months ago, that was pretty good. But
yeah, you do a great Trump voice.
I can't do it on command. Like, I feel like when I do it on command, where I'm like, it's the greatest podcast in the world. Like, it just doesn't. I don't know.
You have to you have to like be possessed by like you have to be channeling him.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. And here's the thing: it's an impression that was only valuable for that time. Well, I don't know. Maybe Trump impression is like an eternal skill, but it's not a great one. Like, God bless me with one talent.
That's good stuff. I mean, you always make me laugh with that, and I'll just come out and say it. Wasn't a Trump supporter, but miss him being around for the humor. I'll say that much.
Sure.
Right? There's some gap in comedy right now, and it's him. I think just you never knew what fucking weird shit was going to happen. It was hysterical.
He did that thing recently, and I agree. The thing is that I have a complicated relationship with that because I think he was funny, but I think comedy overall got worse with him because everybody just like focused on the wrong things.
Yeah, that's an interesting.
Because it was like, because there are people who do like my friend Zach, Psychic Pebbles. He's like an animator. He does an amazing Trump impression. It's all just because he does the cadence and he just says nonsense. It's not like, oh, I hate this person or like, oh, I love this person. It's usually just like, the sacred symbols fellows over there, they're good people, yes.
See, Chris is better than mine already.
No, but it's just the cadence.
Yeah.
Because he's such an he talks in such a he did a thing recently where he was like, what the hell did he was like, the people in the Middle East, they love the burqas. Like, and I'm like, what the fuck is going, what are you doing? And he was just like talking to, like, he just holds these random press conferences for like, it's so weird.
Yeah, he's an interesting cat just in the sense that, and we've talked about it in the past, where I'm positive he knows he's funny. And so I think he hams it up.
I wish he would have just become a comedian.
That would be great. It's too bad he's so divisive because, and it's too bad everything is so serious since he was the president of the United States. But nonetheless, no impression. Well, I think your Trump impression is great. And
Thank you.
It makes me laugh. So the Kermit the Frog impression, of course, is really good.
We didn't acknowledge it last week when it happened. I was like, "Holy shit!" That Kermit impression.
Can I be real? I don't even remember this happening.
I don't think you were trying to sound like Kermit. I think it just. I heard it. I was like, "Holy shit!" That Chris is Kermit right now. But I don't remember what the context was.
I don't remember the context either. But I try to stay out of people's way when they're being funny as well. I mean, there was that big thing. Did you guys see the when Jon Stewart was on, what's the guy on CBS that used to work for him?
Colbert.
Yeah, Jon Stewart was on Colbert like a couple of months ago, and he was doing that like CDC Wuhan virus like routine, and Colbert kept interrupting him, and it was this big controversy in some comedy circles where people were like dissecting him, like, get the fuck out of the way, like, what are you doing? Let him be funny. So you got to know when to keep your foot off the gas. But Genesis, thank you for writing in. David Graham does acknowledge Dustin here as saying, thank you, Colin and Chris, and congratulations, Dustin. A while back, I had voiced concerns that Dustin was not sufficiently broken for Sacred Symbols. Well, after weeks of consistently maligning his own existence and craving death, I believe our hopeful young boy has devolved into a fellow ghoulish husk of a man. The influence of our two other hosts is certainly the key. So good job. Congratulations, Dustin. How do you feel?
I'm dying a little more every day. So, it is what it is. And I just expect it to, I don't think it'll be a little more each day. I actually expect it to be exponential.
There you go. We got him.
So,
yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Thank you for writing in. And all right, let's get into some PlayStation news finally. We're almost 20 minutes into the show. Slowly but surely, things are starting to get back to normal, and entering into the equation for many of you is a vacation, no doubt a much needed one. But don't limit yourself only to the familiar and safe. That's no fun. Instead, consider traveling to a foreign country with an equally foreign language, and when you do, let Babbel be your linguistic guide. Babbel is the #1 selling language learning app for a reason. It's intuitive, friendly, and sensical. Their bite-sized lessons weren't created by thoughtless AI and data scraping, and they certainly don't resemble those horrible classes you used to take. Instead, more than 100 language experts contributed to the creation of extensive lessons for 14 languages, including what I and only I refer to as the beloved Romance trilogy: Spanish, French, and Italian. While I took French for literally years, like 7th grade through college, I'm an old man now, and I barely remember being in high school or at my university, nonetheless the nature of the classes I was in. Babbel segued me right into relearning French in my case from the very beginning, the fundamentals, like actual fundamentals for the real world, the modern world, not learning out of a textbook written in 1972, suggesting that you meet your friends at the discotheque. Better yet, Babbel's array of lessons keep things fresh. You can play games, take tests, and even speak into the app directly, so it can help you with ever-important accents and pronunciations. I think Babbel is a great tool for learning the fundamentals, or giving you a segue into something deeper when learning the language of your choice. And by constantly changing a lesson's delivery, I was kept engaged and interested. After using Babbel for a short time, you'll be able to peruse menus, exchange greetings, and gain a deeper understanding of what's going on around you in, say, Germany. I've been overseas many times, and I'm always the American dude speaking English and hoping for the best. Don't be that me. Be the me who loves Babbel just like you will. Right now, when you purchase a 3-month Babbel subscription, you'll get an additional 3 months for free. That's 6 months for the price of 3. Just go to Babbel.com and use the promo code SACRED at checkout. That's Babbel.com, Babbel.com, with the checkout code SACRED, SACRED. Broaden your horizons with the gift of language at Babbel.com with the checkout code SACRED. Babbel, language for life. I wanted to start with the firmware updates. Just to let everyone know, in case you haven't turned on your console, PS5 and PS4 both have new meaty firmware updates. PS5's, of course, is the most important for us, but some of you are still playing on PS4, and so you'll want to check out 9.0 over there as well, which, amongst other things, kind of lets PS4 read the PS5 for the first time, which is good in terms of its network functionality. You can see trophies, you can see the games you played and all that. You weren't able to do that on PS4. You still can't do that on Vita. That's never going to happen. Vita just has no idea what you've done on PS5. And we'll talk a little bit about that functionality a little later as well with another story. But otherwise, we have the new PS5 firmware update, and this allows for better audio support, 3D audio support with built-in speakers, SSD storage expansions, and what was most important to me, trophies. And I got to say, the trophy list has gone from horrible to the best it's ever been. Like that.
Well,
I don't know if you guys looked at it, but it's perfect. You went from these weird squares made by people that never hunted for a trophy in their lives, and they went back to a list like on PS4, but they've buffed the list out so where you can see the name, and then in the square next to it, you see the full text of it. Then you see the rarity. So you see it all at a glance, and you can see like 5 or 6 at a time. It's wonderful. Very, very excited about that, and so relieving, because that was really kind of ruining things for me a little bit. I know it sounds crazy, but it was, I mean, they fixed it. They knew it was a problem.
Yeah.
And so did either of you, let's start with you, Chris. Did you get a chance to mess around with the firmware yet?
Well, so no, because my stuff literally, like my console's been in a truck for like the last like 3 weeks, and it just got here yesterday. I still haven't even turned it on yet. I hope it still works. But my PC works, and that's like more sensitive. So like I assume everything's fine. But I haven't turned my PlayStation on like in
That's a great
3
point.
weeks because I haven't had it. But
that's a great point. So we'll consult with you on that next week. Dustin, have you gotten a chance to use the new UX features, etc.?
Yes, a little bit. The most funny thing to me that I'm seeing, and this happened to me, was when I booted it up, I was like, There's 2 copies of It Takes Two on my menu bar because I had both PS4 and PS5 installed. Which usually I'm pretty savvy and go in and delete the old one. But I saw some people on Twitter that were like, I have 2 copies of all these games on my system because the way that they well, I guess the lack of the differential or whatever between PS4 and 5 was just non-existent. They just had it so you had to like go in the menus to switch it. And so now it's very clear there's a PS5 logo or a PS4 logo before each game. And it's funny. It's such a, can you call something a quality of life improvement when it's actually like so embarrassing that it wasn't there to begin with?
Yeah, interesting point. It's how I feel about the trophy situation. You're right, Larry. It's, I want to gush, but if you just consulted with someone, you would have gotten this in the beginning anyway. And you're right in the sense that the PS4, PS5 thing, this is actually the second iteration of that. Remember that when PS5 launched, it was way more, even more confusing what you were playing. And then they made that like buff out, like that bump out with like PS4, PS5, that menu.
Yeah.
Then they brought it to this. And my whole thing is like, maybe just don't download the PS4 version automatically on PS5. Like, let people go do that if they want to. The only reason I would assume you would want to do that is for trophies. I couldn't imagine what other reason you would even do that. If this is the smart delivery. Why will you always haunt me, great error of making fun of smart delivery for years?
They really did botch it in the beginning. Like, cause I remember, like, it was like literally our first, like when we first talked about the console, when we first got it, like one of my first things that I was talking about was literally just like, I was playing the PS4 version of fucking Miles Morales and I didn't know because it just didn't, it's so weird that they wouldn't make that clear in an obvious way. Like early on in the drafts of that operating system, like they should have had stuff like that ironed out 2 years ago, like in the OS, like when they were building this thing. So
I totally agree. And I do wonder what was the use case to not make that differentiation from the beginning too? Like what was even the logic behind that? Because it doesn't make any sense because like I said, I would imagine you would only want to play the older version for trophies. But they clearly didn't give a shit about trophies because look at the way they rolled them out. So something in here just doesn't make any sense.
Something's amiss.
Yeah, I would agree. So I'm glad that they got that straightened out. We have a good question here from Dan Excel who says, hello, CDC. What are your thoughts on the new firmware update for the PS5? Well, we've already gotten into that, but he says, we've all been critical of the OS thus far, and they finally delivered on some big changes with this update. Is there anything you would still like to see that hasn't been updated yet? Cheers and have a great weekend. I've been seeing in my circles, my trophy circles, that people are hungry now for more, and what they want is a quicker way to access trophies, which is cool. But there is a new functionality where you can tag 5 trophies, as I understand. So that's cool. So you can have them just up in your bar. But I feel like there's still some snappiness issues that need to be taken care of, particularly when I'm on the media side. I've been using I paid for NFL Sunday Ticket as I do each year, and it's its own app. And it works better than ever from a fidelity standpoint, but I'm confused why these apps don't seem to be better optimized for PS5, loading quickly, getting into things quicker, all of that. Why is it taking 10 seconds for Amazon or YouTube to load up? Little things like that I think are quality of life more than UX issues. I think I'd like to see them handled next because there's really just no reason. And my assumption is that these programs aren't as well refined as we would have liked, which is strange because you'll remember back, they don't talk about this too much anymore, but you'll remember back in the PS3 and 360 era, it was PlayStation 3 that was most used on Netflix. You would think that they would have some sort of reason to make that happen. But Chris, is there anything you want to see on PS5 that would make the experience better for you from an operating system standpoint?
I'm not sure. I think I agree with you in the snappiness overall as like a general kind of like improvement. But honestly, to me, like the one thing that, and maybe this is just a me thing, because I don't know if I've seen many people agree or echo this complaint, but I don't know why the games and the apps icons like themselves have to be so damn small and far away. Like it feels kind of like weird to me. Like it's not even necessarily that it's bad. It just feels kind of off. That it's almost like it's off in the distance. I'm like, look,
that's interesting. Yeah, there is a lot of like dead space.
Yeah,
for them to show you things.
Yeah, and I hate dead. Well, I love Dead Space, but I hate Dead Space in like UI design and stuff like that, where it's like just use your screen real estate. like it's there, and there's a lot of great icon art, like, and there's a lot of stuff you could do with that space too that they're just not. And it's, I don't know, it just feels like it feels like I'm zoomed out all the way on like a web page sometimes.
That's a really great point. And I assume it kind of gets back into the controversy from a few months ago. You guys will recall when people were upset that they found out Sony's charging people for real estate, right? And of course they're going to do that,
Right.
but I feel like that probably is the impetus for that, to say like, well, because like when you turn on your PlayStation 4, or PlayStation 5, it shows you something that can't come cheap. Like whatever that is, it's not always first or second party. That cannot possibly come cheap.
That's true.
And I assume that is the reason. But wouldn't it be cool, to your point, if by subscribing to PlayStation Plus, you can turn off ads and mess around and make it so it's like an ad-free experience that would use the real estate better? And I would love something like that. That would give you more of a reason to get the PS Plus, negate kind of these algorithms that are trying to nail you. I'm getting stuff for like Tails cons. I feel like sometimes these things don't even know that I bought the game, so it's not very intelligent.
Right.
But my assumption is that's why it's there.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Dustin, what are you looking for on the OS?
There's a few small things. Like I actually really like the PS4 themes, and so I'd like to see themes make a return. This other answer is kind of a cop-out, but it is truly what I want most, and that's Discord functionality, which luckily we know that is coming at some point. But there's nothing worse than wanting to play on, talk on Discord, play on PlayStation. So you have like your Apple earbuds through your headphones, and then like someone's TV is feeding back in. It's terrible right now if you want to use Discord and PlayStation without some crazy setup. So I think once that's integrated, especially now in the era of so many cross-play games, it's going to be a big deal for PlayStation. You have to imagine the Xbox wants in on that also. I kind of want it to come to both. Like, let Discord be a universal platform, but it's nice to see Sony got the snag at least early on.
Yeah, I think they're smart enough to realize they shouldn't do that. It's also a minority share, so I think they would be overridden if they wanted to do
that definitely needs to happen. Because, dude, I've been like on Destiny 2 crossplay with like a bunch of my friends now, because now we can do like, oh, hey, my Jalen's on Xbox, Paul's on PlayStation, I'm on PC, great. And the voice chat in that game doesn't work, and my like Jalen is like he's technologically inept with computers, so he doesn't know how to use Discord. And he doesn't know how to use an app that isn't on a console already. So like he's been like setting up these actual like conference calls, like with like phones, and it's such a nightmare, because I was just like, hey guys, I can play with you and I can talk to you, but I can't hear what's going on in the game, so you're gonna have to tell me when shit's happening. And it's like, the sooner that happens, like the better.
It's key to what's going on. I mean, we're going to talk about Splitgate later and other games. I mean, these are games that people want to talk to each other when they're playing these games. And so it's a very shrewd acquisition, and we'll see about that. But yeah, Chris, I think you and I are in the same minds too, where I just think what I would want more is just more attention to the snappiness. The promise is there. It happens sometimes. You go into a program like that, the game loads like that, you go into YouTube like that, but not always. Like there's some, I don't know what it is. There's something's holding it back from being as snappy as it could be. And so that I would really like for them to focus on those things now, because I think the console, when you compare it to, PS3, it's like you can't even compare it to it, but PS4, it's in a great place compared to where PS4 was, which was in a very good place. And remember, it wasn't until 2013 when we got PS4 when we realized how bad PS3 was. And that didn't happen this time because PS4 is still good. So now they have to kind of eat around the edges and fix the experience itself. And I'm confident they will. So go check out those on PS4, PS5. You have to download them, so might want to just get it out of the way now. Now, I'm interested to see what you guys think of this next story. I was going to write this one up, but I decided not to. NVIDIA's GeForce Now streaming service, apparently, according to a Reddit post, leaked an asinine amount of stuff. And I want to say two things. Number one, I have no idea what they were thinking putting the shit into GeForce into like the back end. And number two, I believe it's totally real. Now, that's my gut check. I'm curious what you guys think about this, but to catch everyone up, and I'm just using Push Square's story, someone named Igor July, I don't know who that is, but he found G4, he went into G4 Now's database, and he took a look inside, and he apparently wrote this like extensive, I don't know if you guys saw it, a Medium post about what he found. There's a shit ton of things that are not interesting to me, But and actually, when you read his post, it's funny because the games are the most interesting part, but he like glosses over them almost because he finds all this other stuff that is more intriguing to him. And the original story says, and I agree with Push Square's framing. To be clear, the data is real. You can even go and check it out for yourself if you know how. So this stuff is in GeForce's background. This isn't a rumor, as they note. And NVIDIA said in a follow-up, WCCF Tech got this story, but NVIDIA said, NVIDIA is aware of an unauthorized published game list with both released and or speculative titles used only for internal tracking and testing. Inclusion on the list is neither confirmation nor an announcement of any game. NVIDIA took an immediate action to remove access to the list. No confidential game builds or personal information were exposed. Some of the games on here include Chrono Cross Remaster, Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, Final Fantasy IX Remake, Kingdom Hearts 4, Resident Evil 4 Remake, which we already knew about, Street Fighter 6, which we kind of already knew about, Dragon's Dogma 2, we kind of already knew about, Monster Hunter 6, which kind of already knew about, the GTA remasters, which leaked, BioShock, which is dated as coming in 2022, and that might be a remake. We don't know yet because it just says BioShock 2022. Mirror's Edge Remaster, an untitled Respawn game, and Titanfall 3. Tekken 8, The Talos Principle 2, Crysis 4, Batman Arkham Knight Remaster, XCOM 3, Injustice 3, God's Will Fall, Destroy All Humans 3, Sniper Elite 5, City Skylines 2, Fight from Middle-earth, Mortal Kombat 12, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 Remaster. And as I noted on Twitter, Activision denied the existence of that game at all, which is my one hanging point, my one hanging chat here. Helldivers 2 on the list as well, a second-party Sony game. And then the crux of the issue for us here on this show, although there's much to discuss. There are 8 games on PS5 listed as coming to PC. God of War 2018, Horizon Forbidden West already listed, Gran Turismo 7 already listed, Returnal, Demon Souls, Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, and Ghost of Tsushima, which is already on PC. So, and will be migrating potentially to their streaming service. Let's start with you, Chris. What is your gut check? First of all, do you think this is real? I mean, we know it's real, but do you think this... I don't even know how to say this. NVIDIA's comment confirmed it to me that they're real.
Yeah.
Because they say no builds have been leaked, no personal information was exposed. It's not a confirmation or an announcement. So it's like, these are real games. And they really fucked up. Although, I mean, you could assume... What I was saying on Twitter is nothing on here is like out of the ordinary. There's no massive announcement here, in my opinion. A lot of people were excited about some of this stuff, but none of this like blew me away.
I think there are a few. I think the fact that Final Fantasy Tactics is being remastered is pretty amazing to me after so long.
Exciting. Yeah.
And that's coming from somebody who's like not super familiar with Final Fantasy or the tactics genre in general. Like that's just kind of surprising to see after so long of like getting nothing. I think Titanfall 3 is really interesting to me because that's just I really did think for sure that was just never going to happen. And the thing for me that is more interesting than anything else, even though it's like probably like not that big of a deal, the fact that there's actually a Destroy All Humans 3, like a proper 3. There was never a 3, by the way. So this is like we've got the remake and then 2 remake leaked. The trailer for it leaked.
Right.
So the fact
by
that
PlayStation leaked it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing we can confirm is totally real.
Yeah. So like just the thought like, okay, so they've been working on a proper third game, like with modern hardware, not built on like a PS2. Like that's kind of awesome. That is really exciting to me. But yeah, I mean,
I was going to say, this is the promise ultimately of THQ Nordic. I mean, they've been kind of quiet, even though they bought all this stuff, but this was eventually going to happen. Like the games were eventually going to be ready. And here we are.
Yeah, here we are. I think this is all totally real. Like, I think the whole Modern Warfare 3 thing is bizarre. I don't know what to make of that, but all of this sounds pretty believable. The only one thing that, like, there are a few here that, like, what are the most suspect ones to you? Because to me, the most suspect ones to me are, like, Mirror's Edge Remaster. Like, I don't know.
And
like,
Arkham
that
Knight.
To me, and Arkham Knight also.
Yeah,
like,
that's a weird one.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, other than Modern Warfare 3... I would say, yeah. I would actually say any of the remasters, including the Square Enix ones, are the most suspicious. But the fact that Chrono Cross and Tactics are both being remastered at the same as well indicates like either like they're in there, right? So it can't be like some fanboy fantasy unless there's someone at GeForce who's just making these for testing. But why would you use? it's just too much, right? Injustice 3 Gods Will Fail, or Gods Will Fall rather, that's a specific name. It's not like you're not speculating that it's going to be called Injustice 3, and you're saying it's going to be called this thing. And we already know that some of these games are coming, so it's not that surprising. Like the GTA remasters are coming. You know, Final Fantasy 4 remake. People were talking about or Resident Evil 4 rather remake. I was like, didn't they already say that they were doing that? I mean, I don't understand like why that would be such a big surprise.
Yeah, we've known about that for a while.
Helldivers 2 might be the biggest surprise in some way, but and people were curious about this, about its, you know, Arrowhead Studios makes it. Sony owns the IP. It's a second party game. It was a very early PC migration that found a lot of support on PC. And so I'm not particularly surprised that they would revisit that at all.
Yeah.
It could actually be a good game to just do PS4, PS5, PC right out of the gate. Very similar to the way they did PS3, Vita, PS4, as you might recall, when the original Helldivers came out. And that's a fucking awesome game.
Yeah.
That's a really, really fun game. That game used to make me laugh because it was so comically difficult. Where you would like, you could put down a gun turret and then the gun turret could just wipe your entire party out because it was like friendly fire. So that game was a really, really interesting one. So Dustin, what do you make of all of this?
I think that it is real for sure. Like it's just, if you look at this Igor July, like he found it, and I think Push Square said the data is real. The one thing that I would say is that there may be games that have been either canceled or they were just prototyped and may not come to fruition. For example, I think the Modern Warfare 3, no doubt they were testing around and seeing if that was something they wanted to do. And they may...
The scuttlebutt is that it might have even be done.
Right.
And they just aren't releasing it.
Right.
Yeah, anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that one of the most important points to hit on here is the existence of all these PlayStation games. And I'm not, again, people know, but I'm not a developer. This is just speculation. I may be wrong. I'd love to hear feedback about this. But my theory on all these PS5 games being on here is that Sony has a PC strategy now. They know that these games will eventually end up on PC. It might be 3 to 5 years for some of them. But now that they have this strategy, it would make complete sense to me that during the development of these games, they told the devs, like, hey, we want to put these on PC, keep it open, or maybe if they have a team that would even be dedicated, a smaller team within the developer to do that, or they've already sent the code over to Nixxes to start on these PC ports. So to me, like, I saw some of the more fiery Twitter people saying like, see, no reason to own a PS5 now. They're all coming to PC. I'm like, well, yes, that is correct. They're all, I would say, coming.
That, though.
What's that?
We knew that, though. I mean, that's why people's it's like, why are you? People are so annoying.
I know.
With that shit. It's like, we knew. I mean, they just bought Nixxes, like you said, and they had said that these games. I mean, it's not a surprise that these games are coming to PC. I think you could be right. I really think GeForce just completely shat the bed here. I mean, let's be clear. I want to go through these. So we have 4 Square Enix games: Chrono Cross Remaster, Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, Final Fantasy IX Remake, and Kingdom Hearts 4. Then you have 4 Capcom games: Resident Evil 4 Remake, Street Fighter 6, Dragon's Dogma 2, and Monster Hunter 6. Then you have, let's see, 2 2K games and Grand Theft Auto Remasters and BioShock 2022. Then you have 3 EA games: Mirror's Edge Remaster, Untitled Respawn Game, and Titanfall 3. Then you have like some Bandai Namco stuff with Tekken 8. You have indie stuff with Talos Principle. You have stuff with Crytek with Crysis 4. You have stuff with the WB with Arkham Knight Remaster and Injustice 3 Gods Will Fall, and THQ Nordic with Destroy All Humans 3, and Embracer with, or I'm sorry, actually it's Rebellion with Sniper Elite 5, and all the rest. There's a lot of shit and a lot of people they fucked. Now, it doesn't really matter that these games were revealed like this, but it kind of sucks for the various studios, depending on the project. BioShock 2022, like, that's vague. I have no idea what that means. But, you know, Final Fantasy IX Remake, it's a pretty big deal. So we'll see. I think we all have the same gut check, though, that this is real, and we'll find out. And I just don't think there's any way for NVIDIA to put this back. Although, if you guys want to go read the Medium post, you should. It's ighor.medium.com. So Igor with an H, .medium.com, and you can check all that out if it pleases you. Let's see. What else do we have here? Let's see. Corey Barlog. Oh, hi, I think I'm real. I had a question for... actually, What is this here? You know what? Let me stay for a minute.
Let's stay.
Hi, I think I'm real wrote in and said, top of the morning, boys. I know this show is somewhat averse to speculation, but that NVIDIA leak is a bit too big, I'm sorry, to ignore. Trying to hold back premature excitement, but come on, man. Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, Final Fantasy IX Remake. Anything on that list you find interesting? Maybe titles that seem high in the sky. I do want to ask, I was loath to not ask, what is the game that you're most excited about on this list? I mean, what is the one? And I would agree with Chris that Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster is tantalizing. It's been 24 years since Final Fantasy Tactics came out. We got those two Tactics Advanced games and the port on PSP, but it's been a long time. So, I mean, that was the one that really stuck out to me. But Final Fantasy IX Remake would be nuts just because I'm curious who would even be making it. And, of course, the GTA remasters are quite tantalizing as well. Chris, what is the game on here for you?
Destroy All Humans 3. Easily for me, because that to me was like, that's a fictional game. Like, I was looking forward to that game in high school, and it never came, because what happened was they had like this Wii game called like Destroy All Humans Big Willie Unleashed, and it was like a spin-off, and like they didn't have any of the original actors in it, and it was just like, what the fuck is this? And then they did this horrible 360 kind of sequel, but it was by like a studio called Sandblast Games, which like that was their only game, and they never did anything else. And that wasn't. It just ran so poorly. That was like an alpha build of a game that they just put out, and then the series just died. So we never got the 3 that I was looking forward to. And just the thought that we could be getting a 3 so far into the future, so far after the second one, where there's like so many generations of machines behind it now to maybe like realize that vision a little bit more like completely, with like better physics and like a bigger open world and more possibilities. Like, that's like really exciting to me, especially because that series is just like so strange and weird and oddball. It's like a very like middle market kind of like, let's just do this weird thing. And to see that kind of identity continue potentially with like hopefully the same cast is like really exciting to me. It's like the game that I wanted when I was a kid, and then I'm finally getting, if this is real, which my gut check is that it is. That's like super exciting to me, even if it is ultimately going to be probably like, you know, a fine video game. To me, it's just a big deal. It's
exciting because I think that we're gonna, I mean, it's not exciting, let's say it's interesting, because a lot of these IP that were wrapped up with THQ and all their iterations for the last 10 years, I think we're going to start finally seeing them truly bubble forth with new AAA games. Red Faction, right? We're seeing Saints Row come back imminently. So I think you'll continue to see these kinds of products, and that's just another one. Kingdoms of Amalur, I think, is another one where we're going to see a real new one as well. I mean, we talked about the DLC last week, so it'll be exciting. Dustin, what's the one for you on this list?
I have to say right off the bat, I meant to say this earlier, RIP to all the Bloodborne fans. You got everything under the fucking sun on this list except for Bloodborne.
What's the deal with that? So strange. Although it's worth noting that on that list, oh, you know what? I was going to say that's not true. I was going to say that list has cross-gen games only. Although, yeah, I guess that is true, but it doesn't matter. Go on.
A lot of people would expect that I would say Kingdom Hearts 4. It's not. I'm tired. Please let the suffering end at this point. But I will play it, no doubt. I'm going to say Titanfall 3, just because I thought Titanfall 2, man, the campaign for that game is so incredible. If you haven't played that campaign, I'm just going to say you're fucking up, especially if you're an FPS fan. You have to play the campaign for Titanfall 2. It's so good. And with the success of Apex, I think, I'm trying to remember what public statements they made, but it's kind of clear that they weren't even thinking about doing Titanfall 3, that Titanfall was effectively dead after Titanfall 2 and Apex. So to see this on the list, I really hope it's real, because Titanfall deserved better, and this could be another chance.
Very well said. The fall is upon us, and the winter thereafter. But don't let the jeans and the sweaters and the sneakers betray you. Your body hair still needs to be tamed. If not for you, then for those you love. But there's good news. My friends at Manscaped are experts in male grooming, and before you know it, you'll be all cleaned up and ready for prime time, thanks to the wonders of the so-called Performance Package 4.0. Now, I'm a true believer in the Performance Package for one reason above all others: the Lawnmower 4.0 buzzer. This body hair trimmer is good enough to act as my beard trimmer as well, and I use it multiple times a week. In fact, I still use my lawnmower 3.0 too because I am indeed what you might refer to as a Manscaped believer. The lawnmower is wireless, powerful, and it truly works, which as many of us know is a lot to say for a buzzer since so many don't work whatsoever. You can safely take care of your unmentionables with it, sure. You won't cut yourself like you would with a razor, and you won't tense up with every slash. But it really is great for everything, your chest, your armpits, and so on and so forth. I even get on my knees like I'm praying for my life as my girlfriend cleans up my neck with the lawnmower. It's fantastic. Of course, the performance package also comes with some other notable items, including an ear and nose hair trimmer and even a so-called ball deodorant, which I know you simply cannot resist. It all comes with a travel bag, which is convenient, and of course, since Manscaped has had more than 2 million customers, rest assured you can purchase their many men's care items a la carte too. Your special lady friend may even try to steal a few of these items, and no, I'm not accusing her of having unseemly body hair. I just meant she'd like the smell of the lotions. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code SACRED at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code SACRED. That's SACRED at manscaped.com. That's MANSCAPED.com. Make your balls a priority this fall. Choose Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Now it's safe to move on. I wanted to talk a little bit about this. I want to talk about God of War generally because, first of all, Cory Barlog notes that they're ending, and this is a pretty interesting thing here on VGC. I have it, Video Game Chronicle, great website. Says that, and this is according to Cory Barlog, who was on Captain Kuba, who I guess is I don't know who he is, but a YouTuber and a podcaster, says, I think one of the most important reasons, and he's talking about why they're ending it after the second game, the Norse saga. He says, I think one of the most important reasons is the first game took 5 years. The second game, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm just going to throw out that it's going to take a similar time. And then if you think, wow, a third one in that same amount of time, we're talking like a span of close to 15 years for a single story. And I feel that's just too stretched out. I feel like we're asking too much to say that actual completion of that story taking this long feels too long. And given sort of where the team was at and where Eric was at, what he wanted to do, the director, I was like, look, I think we can actually do this in the second story because most of what we were trying to do from the beginning was to tell something about Kratos and Atreus, that the core of their story's engine is really the relationship between these two characters and the complexity radiates out like ripples in a pond. And we can make it an ocean and make those ripples go on for thousands of miles. But is that necessary? And is that beneficial? Or are we feeling like it's spreading too far apart? The ripples get too far apart and you sort of lose the plot a little bit. I thought this was interesting because this is what people say about The Last of Us. And I wonder if they learned that lesson from this too. But Dustin, let's go to you first. I mean, what do you make about this? That we knew the Norse arc was ending, but why they're ending it? I think it's well said from multiple angles. I don't think anyone wants to work on a series for that long. First of all, I'll get into this a little later, but I'm not so sure God of War demands like another game after this. Like, let it rest again for a little while. Look what you did by bringing it back and making it a thing. And so I think there's a lot to say here, but what do you think about what Cory had to say?
It's interesting and it's very respectable in that, movies, TV, whatever are always, it feels like at least trilogies. Like you got to do 3. And so to be forward and be like, yeah, we don't want to do 3 because we can tell the story in 2 is cool. It's very upfront. I like that. The question I have is just that Sony only, they love IP, they love franchises. And so I'm wondering, I'm like, okay, so the Norse trilogy is done. Does that mean that you have an idea for, or Norse trilogy? See there, I just said it instinctively, said trilogy. The Norse story is done.
Saga.
So, the saga, yeah. Right. So do they already have a plan for where Kratos goes next already? Or do they have a plan for whatever game that Sony's like, okay, we're willing to put that money aside for some time in order to do something else? Like maybe, who knows, maybe Santa Monica has a licensing deal for like a Marvel thing or a Star Wars thing or whatever, because they're clearly, Sony's much more, I don't want to say so much more money focused now, but now that we see them really getting into bed with Marvel, I wouldn't be surprised if we see other big licensed titles. I hope that's not the case, but...
Well, remember, they have a third-party, kind of second/third-party thing going on with Aspyr and Lucas for KOTOR remake, which they're funding. But they couldn't extract that exclusively. I'm very curious about what the hell happened there. Like, why wouldn't they just get that? But I think it says that Disney is not interested in having exclusive Star Wars games, which is smart. And I think MCU even having exclusive games or Marvel having exclusive games, I think is very, frankly, strange. But I think that, I don't know if that was always the intention until Marvel encountered Insomniac and realized that it was going to work out great for them. But my hope is that even though this is possible, I would love Santa Monica to just explore some new IP. I think they're working on another game now. And yeah, so what do you think about what Corey had to say, Chris, and the kind of the candor of the operation? I totally get it. I would never want to work on a creative endeavor, like something I'm making, like a piece of art. Can you imagine making that for 15 years? And also, I think it's time to put God of War away, like I said, again. And also, I wonder in future iterations, could God of War exist without Kratos? Be an interesting question to conquer. Could it be about Atreus or something like that? I don't know. So
yeah,
what do you think?
I don't know. I think I appreciate it. I don't really think God of War demands a trilogy again. I do think it is too long. You know, like it is like a really like ungodly amount of time to spend working on one story. And I think honestly a lot of it probably came from the fact that they were probably going through designing this thing. And they were probably thinking, like, first of all, do we have another story to tell after this? Probably not. And anything after this would feel forced. Or another thing that I think is also probably likely is it's no surprise that a lot of these Sony first-party games kind of their focus is on narrative. Their focus is on story. Their focus is on kind of world building. And so just something that I've noticed is that gameplay really only exists to serve that. And I don't know. There's already so little distinguishing God of War 2018 from this new God of War Ragnarok. And I saw a lot of people like shitting on the games, like they're reusing the same boat animation. It's like, it's a good boat animation. It's fine. But that's the thing. It's like, there comes a point where it's like, at a certain point, what more can you really improve on? And I don't know if there's really that much room to improve, especially enough to make like a whole nother third game in 7 or 10 years. So I think that it's a wise move to just sort of put it away, sort of admit that like, hey, we've shown you all that we can show you with these two games, with this story, with this narrative, with this gameplay style. We're going to put this away. We're going to move to something else. And even if that thing is another God of War in like a different, pantheon of gods or like whatever, or if it's something completely new, I think that's interesting too. I would hope that they're going to something new though, because they could always just choose to come back when they feel they have an idea or when they feel technology has gotten to a point where they can deliver on something that they can't deliver on now. Indeed. It's always wise to do that as opposed to just kind of sprinting for the finish and just sort of like, we got to get these 3 games out, even though we've got like very few ideas. I like the candor. I like the admission, and I like the fact that they're not relying on just the magic 3. Like, it's nice. It's refreshing.
Indeed. What's your take on this, Dustin?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think they give Kratos a little nap. What are they going to do next? Is they're going to, when you have an IP like this, are they going to get the Hollywood treatment? Kratos finds a portal and he ends up in New York City with his wife, and then he has to, whoa, this is crazy time. What's this? What is this big box with wheels? Like, that's.
And then Spider-Man swings in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
this just sounds like
PlayStation
a
All-Stars.
Just sounds like a Fortnite trailer.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah, give Graham. I mean, at this point, it'll be Grandpa. Yeah, give him a break.
Indeed. You need time to miss these characters. Like, one of my biggest contentions, and this is like a little off topic, but like Halo 4 came out like 4 years. Like, it was literally only 4 years after the third game came out. And it's like, dude, I barely got a chance to miss this dude. Like, you really should have waited like like 8 or 10 years. It would have been awesome to see him again. But instead, they just sort of blew their load too quickly. And I don't want them to do that here. I want them to like tell the story, be done, put them away, and bring them back when you have a cool idea. Because that was such an awesome reveal at the first, like when they first like revealed God of War 2018. Like when that first reveal was awesome because no one was expecting that. It had been a while, and it gave people a chance to kind of like, oh yeah, I miss that. I think you need that.
We'll see. I think what they need in the spirit of that studio too is just something that is not God of War generally, from a cultural standpoint.
Yeah.
I think,
Switch it
as
up.
I said last week, Connecticut was their. I think I said it last week, but Connecticut was their first game, which is a racing game. But ever since then, they've only made God of War games. God of War 2, God of War 3, God of War Ascension, God of War again, God of War Ragnarok. Now next year, that's it. And I feel like there was demand there for something new. We almost got something new out of them, which was canceled on PS4. And I think we'll finally see that come to fruition. But I agree, Dustin, that there has been some criticisms of God of War. We both said it. And I found these a little strange too. Jeff wrote in, though, and said there are rumors that the new God of War game will be in the 40-hour range, likely possible due to it being a PS4 game with many reused assets. Is this too long? Many people felt that The Last of Us Part 2 overstayed its welcome. Like your podcast, as long as it remains high quality, it can never be too long. Yeah, thank you very much, Jeff, for writing in. 40 hours is preposterous. If God of War is 40 hours long, I'm going to be upset about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the perfect... I feel like, first of all, I feel like the first God of War somewhat overstayed its welcome, although I think a lot of it was optional, which was kind of cool. I think a lot of the time was that very clumsy hub world, like it was not good. And PS5 should ameliorate a lot of the load time and issues with that and the annoying quick travel and stuff, but I still felt like by the end I was done with God of War. And I've always been of the mind that this game is really great, but not like this pantheon of great PlayStation games. I totally disagree about that with other people. So 40 hours doesn't sound tantalizing to me, and I am a little worried because The Last of Us Part 2 is probably about 5 hours long, in my opinion. Too long. Chris, what's the perfect runtime for this game?
I think 15 to 20 hours is like a really magic spot. I don't think the second you demand somebody spend double that amount of time on something, you better have a really, really damn good thing. But even then, like, I feel like I'd rather have like a really compelling 15 to 20 hour experience that I would be really excited to play through again because it's so well designed and so well crafted and so well made, as opposed to something that is just fine for like 50 hours. Like I can point to so many games that are probably like maybe like 4 to 8 hours long that I've probably played for well over 100 hours, you know, and it's because they're really good video games and they're designed really well and they demand you kind of go back and play them because they're just that good. And I think I would prefer that be the focus. Like when when people are thinking about how long should we make a game, what they really should be thinking of is, you know, how can we make this experience fun for the 5th time, for the 10th time, for the 100th time? And I think that's a far healthier way to go about designing something, because then you design something that's both infinitely more compelling, less work for you in the long run, because you don't have to spend like fucking, 10 hours on like making new cutscenes or like new, like a tight, amazing experience is better than just like a long meandering one that just ends up being fine. And I agree that there are some games that are like, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a great example of a game that's like super, super like unnecessarily long that I loved. And it's a great game, but I'm probably never going to play that game again. It's probably going to be like maybe like 10 years by the time I play that game again, because it's going to take that long to forget everything. But I don't know, man. I don't understand the obsession with length as a meaning for quality.
No, I mean, we say that's like a theme on this show. I tend to agree. I like a whole smorgasbord of games where time is sometimes like I say, like I like to play 100-hour game like once a year. I dig that. Maybe twice a year I'll spend 50 hours with a game or something, but I want to be in and out relatively in a normal period of time. In other words, don't demand more than you should be from me.
Yeah.
And all will be well. What do you think about this range of timing, Dustin?
The timing, here's the what just sparked in my mind while we're talking about the length of the game is that you have to imagine this game was greenlit under Sean Layden many years ago now at this point. And we've heard Sean talk about his approach was games more like Spider-Man, Miles Morales, right? And what's interesting about this game, and maybe this gets into the next question a little bit as well, is that a lot of people are commenting how similar it looks to the original God of War, or the 2018's God of War. So do you think it's possible that this game was greenlit as a smaller God of War experience that then was changed during development to be a full length God of War, that they've just decided to finish the whole story since they're like, well, we're already making the game, and development, I don't want to say development costs, but we don't need to remake the whole engine or whatever. So instead of doing a smaller one, we're just going to do one beefy one, since that the strategy of the smaller games is no longer in place anymore.
It's possible. I think, well, Corey kind of somewhat confirms that when he says that when they were getting together and realizing what they wanted to do, that they didn't really need to do it more than one more time. And
right.
Well, you said it got into the next question, and I do want to put this out there. It's from Zach Yearwood. He wrote into us on Patreon, and he says, "Good day, gentlemen. Is it me, or has the PlayStation community developed some Halo-level impossible standards for the God of War franchise after just one game? Personally, the new trailer has me hyped to experience the next entry in the series, but for many, it seems like the expectation is that every sequel has to completely reinvent what kind of game it is. For example, fans would only be excited for God of War 2 if it was now a tactics game with a whole new combat system and camera perspective. In this age of AAA game development, to have that kind of expectation is not finally feasible unless you're willing to wait 10 plus years for every game. Have a great weekend." I think that I was a little befuddled by some people's comments, like that one, like the boat pushing animation. When I first saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that kind of is weird, especially because they would choose to showcase that, and people are going to make that connection. But it brings up two things for me. Number one, it's not necessarily very uncommon to do that. There's obviously famous Disney movies that do that over and over and over again. Use like famous twirling animations and dancing animations, whatever. So I'm not, no one holds that Disney and says, Robin Hood sucks because it uses some animations from, Snow White or something. It's like, who cares? But at the same time, this is a rubber meets the road kind of moment. When you demand 20, 30, 40-hour games, when you have unrealistic expectations, and when you're not willing to pay more for them than $70, and I know that this is an unpopular thing, people are freaking out about $70 games. I mean, this is what you're going to get. They're going to do what they can, and they're not going to reanimate that section if they don't have to. In fact, the budgets are such that, and this is to Dustin's point about what Sean Layden was saying, the budgets are such that they probably have associate producers going through with a fucking scalpel trying to figure out what they don't have to do again, because the games are costing them $150 million or whatever to make, and they can't, and they have these unrealistic. So it's not that I have a problem with people having those expectations and being excited. I just think there needs to be a little bit more education into how this works. Like what would have you gained from them reanimating Kratos pushing a boat into the water if it looked so good the first time? Why would you be like, you would think like, oh, they put in so much extra work because they had Kratos pushing a boat with a different animation. It's like, but that means that the animator could just go work on something new now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like really, I feel like people don't really fully understand like game development or even just animation. Like, just like, I feel like people need to understand that like it's better to work smarter than it is to work harder. Like, you don't need to like make an insane amount of work for yourself when all the work that you've already done works. Like, this isn't like a sequel to a game that came out in 2007 that demands like higher fidelity animations than what you got back then, because motion capture is now a thing and people are going to notice. And it's like, the last game arguably still looks really good now. Like, if you put out that game today, it would still look really, really good. So I just don't understand the weird cherry picking. And by the way, like, reusing assets is something that every game does. Like, sometimes a game will polish up an animation a little bit, but like for the most part, like, dude, there are literally Halo Combat Evolved, Halo CE animations in Halo Infinite. And people love that because it's like, oh, cool. They brought that back. Even though that's arguably just the same, that's like less work because you're just ripping an anime. I don't know. I feel like people need to educate themselves a little bit more on like what it takes to build these things and what value you're actually getting from like having somebody spend a lot of time reanimating the same thing if it's just probably going to look like only slightly different than it already looks.
Right. And
like, it's weird.
It's just, if you did it right the first time, I mean, everyone keeps saying there's no difference between the PS4 and PS5, right? So that's, of course, I don't agree, but this is another one of those things. Well, there you go. There's your PS4 animation on PS5. And so it also gets into all of that. But I don't know. Dustin, did you have more you wanted to say about this? Because you did bring that subject up of the quality, and I guess I'm just surprised. I was a little surprised by some of the negativity around the showcase last week,
Right.
because I was like, what do you want? I'm no staunch Sony defender, as people who listen to the show know, but it's like I said last week, like that was no worse than very good. And yeah, so God of War getting bodied a little bit was surprising, because I was like, this is the game everyone was excited about. I thought it was weird they didn't date it.
Right. So the only, I guess I'll pose a question just to the audience, and we don't have to answer this, but to think about, because I'm trying to figure this out in my brain, is that the new Horizon looks distinctly different from the original Horizon Forbidden West. And the new God of War, while I agree with everything you guys are saying about I'm cool with them reusing stuff, there's something about it that isn't quite as distinct when it comes to a sequel. And I'm trying to figure out exactly what that is and what that means, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
because we didn't see this reaction for Horizon, and it's also a cross-gen game.
I mean, we don't have to get into it. I know we have a show to do, but like, I think there is part of me that kind of looks at Horizon and feels like Horizon had. I feel like Horizon had more room to improve than God of War 2018 did. I feel like the studio that made God of War 2018 understood what they were making, and it was like decidedly new, and it was decidedly like very good. They have experience making those third-person action games, as opposed to, Horizon, which was this FPS studio trying something new. Like, I remember when I played Horizon for the first time, it didn't grab me as much as it grabbed everybody else, because to me, it really did feel like, oh, I can tell that this is like a studio's first attempt at doing something like this. It's a very good attempt, and it's very solid and very, very well made. But I could feel that kind of like learning. And it looks like in this sequel, like Horizon Forbidden West, like when I saw that trailer, I was like, yeah, they looked like they learned a lot from making that first game, and it looks decidedly better. But I don't necessarily feel like God of War, like if you were to improve God of War animation wise and like combat wise, I don't know what you would really do. From a player perspective, like me outside looking in, like I would have no idea how to make the axe throwing look better than it already does. Whereas in Horizon, I could say like, oh, that turning animation could be a little bit improved, or like, the climbing is a little slightly wonky sometimes. They're also just very different games, but
right.
I don't know.
It's I think we'll see what ends up happening with both of these games soon. I want to put this out there because I was thinking about this, and this is not going to be pleasing to many people that are excited to play God of War, but I'm wondering if God of War will not come out until 2023. They were loath to date it, right? And I was thinking about the math, and the math lines up. Horizon 1, Horizon 2, 5 years, 2017 to 2022. 5 years for God of War would be 2018 to 2023. And I'm kind of wondering if we got a little hint from that interview that Corey did, where he's like, I'm not saying how long this one will be yet, but let's assume it'll be 5 years. Well, that's 2023. And I just feel like them not even putting a year on that on that new content was symbolic. Whether or not they're waiting to announce a more specific date, but it could also be said that they might not even need it, because Horizon comes out in February, Gran Turismo in March, and then we don't even know. There'll be some second party games probably trickling out. We don't really have the full host of and full complement of games and how they're going to roll out yet. So it could be possible that they won't even really need God of War until 2023. It seems like they need it right now. I would agree that right now, if everything was as it is and we don't know anything else, then they do need it. But I just don't think that is the case. So we'll see what happens. I wanted to pass this next story by you guys about from Video Game Chronicles. It says Hideo Kojima wants to make games that change in real time. And he talked to a Japanese publication, Anon. And here's what he said in part. And he talks about Boktai, The Sun is in Your Hand. I don't know if you guys know that game, but it's a really unique Game Boy Advance game that uses the sun. And you guys can go look it up if you want. But he says, quote, "What I want to do is make games that change in real time. People of all ages and professions are playing the same game, but everyone is playing the same way. Instead, it's something that changes depending on where you live and how you feel about it. I made a game called Boktai, The Sun Is in Your Hand before. It's a portable Game Boy Advance game with a sun sensor and a clock. The amount of light from the sun is reflected in the game to defeat vampires, so the game changes depending on where and when you play. This kind of device connects the system created by people in the real world. And then he talks later about how he wants to keep making games as long as he can or whatever. Dustin, does a game that changes... Boktai was it wasn't a very, I don't want to say controversial, but people were annoyed by it because it was a Game Boy Advance game that, as I recall, was released before the clamshell. And so you would have to play it in the sun with no backlight. And it was that's like the worst possible way you can play it in a non-backlit handheld. So it was a really cool idea, and it's very Kojima, but it just, I don't think the execution, like, people don't want to do that. Even though it sounds like something cool, people don't want to do that. And that's always been my major concern. What do you think about him trying to thread the needle so that a game is like as dynamic as possible?
Right. This is nothing new for Kojima, both in things he's said and things he's done. Of course, you and Dagan just talked about Metal Gear Solid 2, but Metal Gear Solid 1, the famous Psycho Mantis fight where you have to plug your controller in. You have to do something in real life to win, which is cool. He's also mentioned in the past that, I think it was around the time of PT, that he was saying that he wanted to make a game where, like, you put in your phone number and other information and, like, agreed for the game to interact with your life outside of the game, which is kind of like this. So that's, he's definitely flirted around with this idea. You have to be careful, though, Colin, because you mentioned it, that games like this can be annoying. In particular, only if they are designed, I think, correctly. Like Animal Crossing is a game that revolves around the clock, right? And time of day. And so you can only do certain things at certain times of day, which is interesting. But if you're the type of person who, like, works a night shift or has sporadic hours, that's going to be very annoying. And a lot of games that have clocks suffer from this. I think other Pokemon games have done it too. Obviously, it's very a different probably tone of game than Kojima would make. But I think the point stands is that you don't want to inconvenience the players by the mechanics too much. It needs to be compelling enough that it's worth that level of inconvenience. And I don't know if anyone has truly cracked that.
That's very well said. Because it's true, like, you even started to experience it to varying degrees with Wii.
Yeah.
And to a much lesser extent, PlayStation Move or Kinect, where it seems like it's something you want to do. And for a weekend or a week or a month, I mean, even VR veers into this space for a lot of people. It is good, but then you never play Sports Champions again. You never touch your Wii again. Your Wii balance board has been under your coffee table for 10 years. Like, these are, and your Rock Band drums are in the garbage. So it is a little bit of a risk, but a fun one. And I will say that Kojima always blurs that line, Chris, because in playing Metal Gear Solid 2 again recently, it's so stiff and annoying to play. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was when I was playing on a Vita, but even by 2001 standards, like, that game is stiff and annoying. And it's fun. It forces you to play a certain way. I like it. I like holding the soldiers up. I like getting their dog tags and stuff, but it doesn't feel quite right. And I was thinking about Death Stranding, where you and I both love that game. It is, for me, bordering on absurd, right?
Yeah.
He brings it right to the line, and it's quite good. And so maybe he could do something like this. I just don't know. Dustin, what you were saying scratches something in my mind. It might have had something to do with Metal Gear Solid 5, even, where he was saying something like that, where, like, it's like you send things to your phone and you get, like, it's almost like a codec kind of thing. And
yeah.
So what do you think about all of that? Like, kind of immersing yourself more. He's an auteur, so he's always thinking about how to push it.
Yeah. I mean, I look, I'll say this. I don't know if I'm on board with the whole, like, sun sensor thing. or things like that, right? And I don't think Kojima is necessarily the kind of guy to, like, mess around with peripherals so much. He's not the type of guy to, like, maybe, like, jump into, like, I wonder what Kinect will do. I feel like he's more like, what can I do with the game design and what we already kind of universally accept as the tools for playing games. Like, like Dustin brought up, the Psycho Mantis, like, unplug the controller thing. Like, I think he thinks about things in that way. And while I'm not, like, sold on this idea of, like, having a restrictive clock on, like, when you can play, or, like, some weird light sensing mechanics, like, through the camera in your console or whatever, I would say that I do want a Kojima that is thinking like this, because I think we get really interesting shit out of it. Like you said earlier, why would anyone want to do that? And the answer is like, well, why would anybody want to deliver packages for like 20 hours?
That's the point.
Right.
Is like it's almost ridiculous. It almost is.
No, it is. Yeah. It is ridiculous. Like I remember seeing trailers for that game, and like I've told the story many times. I thought it was going to be terrible. Like I couldn't understand why anyone would make it, and it ended up being like probably. I don't remember what else came out that year. I'm not even sure what year it came out at this point. My memory is like dying, but I remember it definitely being in like at least the top 3 games that I played that year. And I fell in love with that game, and it was amazing because I wasn't expecting that concept to grab me. And I think, the best Kojima is the one that's thinking in this weird, like the worst thing you can ever hope to hear from Kojima is, I think I'm going to make a 3rd-person shooter. Like I don't want to hear that. Like I want to hear shit like, yeah, I want like a router connected to every console, and like they're calling you and they're emailing you spam, and you got to decode messages. Like I do want that.
Yeah, that was kind of what I remember him talking about. That was like the kind of thing where it would like bombard you almost. I think David Cage might have talked a little bit about that as well, but I don't know if that's what I go for with games. But I like the idea of having like some sort of meta. It's like when you go to an escape room or something, like this all-encompassing game it's kind of like, it's kind of neat, but I don't know if that's what I'm necessarily looking for. We'll see. Rumors, of course, are that he's working with both Sony and Microsoft, so we'll find out how that all pans out. Now, everyone's so hungry for Wolverine information, and Michael Paoletti wrote in and said, "Hey, fellers, I'm curious to know what you guys think the rating will be for the new Wolverine game by Insomniac. Whilst I'm not very familiar with Wolverine in the comics, I feel like this could be a foray into an M-rated Marvel game similar to Logan or Deadpool. While I know Sony has made many gritty third-person action games, I think I would be disappointed if Wolverine plays too similarly to Spider-Man or has similar tone. I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts." So the good news is Brian Horton, who directed Spider-Man and directing this game too, said that it will be full-size and mature in tone. So that, to me, Michael, indicates that it's going to get an M, and I think that makes sense for Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't really know too much more about it, so we have to kind of massage something to talk about otherwise, and we will here with Bobby Knuckles. It says, "What's up, boys? The recent PlayStation showcase got me thinking, why would we see the Wolverine announcement this early, but not see an announcement for The Last of Us Factions? Who makes this decision? Does Sony drive the ship, or are developers telling Sony when they have something ready? I'm sure it's some combination of those, but I'm just curious if you have any insight as to how these shows are put together." I can say this about Wolverine. I feel like the announcement, there's 2 things with this announcement that has to be taken into account. Number one is that Wolverine is not, Sony doesn't own it. So Marvel and Disney might want to show it immediately and have that out there. But my thought is that Sony is like, look at how big our dick is. We're not going to show you everything that everyone's working on. But by the way, our like world-class studio is now making a Wolverine game. Isn't that great? I think that's one. So do you agree with that, Chris, that that's probably what the intent was? I mean, because Sony has been getting away. Like we said, they haven't even dated God of War. Mm-hmm. And yet they showed Wolverine and announced it. I really do think that's one of those specific examples where you're happy to show it. You want to show it. You want to slap your competitors around a little bit. You want to know everyone to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think Disney and Marvel have a lot of control over when this kind of thing gets shown. I think, they're really famous for like kind of, dude, I remember like back when they first started doing, do you remember when they first started doing those like the phase maps?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For the movies. And there was like,
I hated those.
These are the next movies for the next 5 years. And it's like, holy shit. Okay. And they always inevitably get like delayed or like whatever. But like the fact that they're there shows to me that like anytime we get like a really early announcement from Sony, especially when it's like Marvel related, it's like that to me says it's like, yeah, it's Marvel wanting to get out there. Wolverine is ages away. Like this is a teaser trailer, if that, like, so bear in mind, it's going to be a while before we see this thing. But I definitely think it's a combination of different factors. But I think you're right. I think it is like mostly, it feels like a Disney thing. And just to be like, hey, and they are just happy to show it, because why would you not be excited to have Spider-Man and Wolverine as exclusive like members of your, showcase? Like,
right, and surprise your audience with another Insomniac game. I mean, So I think I said, and I won't say who told me, it's not anyone that works at Sony, but I had actually discovered I totally forgot about this until I was talking to the person later, but I was like, I actually heard about the Wolverine game. And my hope is that, and I don't know why I didn't remember that, but my hope is that, and I'm curious what you think of this, Dustin, is that it's not like Spider-Man at all. My hope is that it's more like Ratchet and Clank, if anything, where I'm not saying I want it to be like a fucking cartoonish platformer. I'm saying like a linear experience. Ratchet and Clank always gives you the idea that you're playing a nonlinear game, but it's really not. I mean, you might you might be able to go to a few planets at the same time, and usually there are large maps that connect to each other. I just think Wolverine doesn't need to be running around whatever city he lives in, fucking collecting things and stuff. I want it to be, frankly, like more like Uncharted, if anything. I mean, I think that dark would be, or not Uncharted, I guess, dark. Let's say The Last of Us, like something in between Uncharted and The Last of Us, that dark.
Yeah.
An adventure, but like they said, something like Logan. I always felt like Wolverine was a little darker. Plus, he has those fucking claws. I mean, what are they going to do?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It would be so goofy looking to have like this like photorealistically rendered like Wolverine, and then he's just like hitting people with his claws.
Kicking dudes off rooftops, and then you look down in Spider-Man. I hated that when like you would look down and they were just hanging off the. It's like, come on, man, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's such a weird thing, dude. Because I remember like, and maybe it's not great that was just something that you could do, but in the original Spider-Man games, like you could just take a random guy to the top of the Empire State Building and just throw him off and like follow him all the way down, and he would die. Like
shit.
it was pretty fucked up.
Yeah,
but especially because he was just like he was just like robbing a convenience store. You know, it was like such a the crime did not fit the punishment at all.
And he's dead now.
yeah. Sorry, my cousin got thrown off the Empire State Building by Spider-Man because he stole a lottery ticket. But no, I mean, I would agree. Like, I think, like, I wouldn't want to see something like Prototype. You know what I mean? Although something that bloody would be awesome. But like, I don't think you need to see like Wolverine like in the same. Can you imagine they just ripped the same New York map from Spider-Man and just put Wolverine in it?
Yeah. I feel like with Marvel now, I mean, particularly with Wolverine, the most recent, at least I think the most recent movie was Logan, which was rated R, and we see Marvel now. There's so many rights issues with some of these characters that I'm not going to even try to track it, but like Deadpool was rated R, and now Marvel actually has control over Deadpool, and they said they're going to keep it rated R. And so I think Marvel is warming up to this idea, like, not everything needs to be for a general PG-13 audience. And especially with a video game, I feel maybe my theory on this is wrong, but with a movie, the studios have they may feel pressure to make it PG-13 for the box office, because a movie theater is not going to let in people that are like rated R movie. They're going to ID people. They're going to potentially lose out on sales for certain types of movies if they're rated R. Games are different to me. Like, obviously you can't be of a certain age to buy a rated M game at most locations, but I think a lot of times parents just don't even care. Like Grand Theft Auto is played by millions of children every day. So,
and like I said, when I was 20 years ago, I paid someone in the mall to buy it for me. Grand Theft Auto 3.
Right.
So it's not like unbelievable that you would get around it.
It's confusing to me that, like, I don't know if this is true. I don't have any industry experience, but like, Colin, do people like shoot for like T ratings for sales reasons?
Yeah, because like it is a point of relevance to them. Yes, but
that's so strange, because like Call of Duty and like Grand Theft Auto are like the highest selling games like ever, always, and they're rated M. So clearly, like, I feel like the games industry like should be wise to the fact that doesn't affect sales, really, like not in any like real tangible, especially if you got a good game.
Yeah, it doesn't. It reminds me of, remember you guys are younger, but you used to get carded sometimes for like music back in the day too, and then it was just a suggestion as opposed to the game thing, which was more like beer, right? And which was strange. I think, as I understand it, a lot of especially mid-tier publishers like to shoot for T or lower because it lowers any barrier to entry for any numeric, any numeric alteration to the numbers in a positive way. In other words, they're not saying like, we're an M-rated game and we're Last of Us or whatever, it's like, well, we just want people to just see this and have it as accessible as it possibly can be. So if a fucking 10-year-old wants to buy it, we should make it as easy to be. But I also don't know. I assume people are getting carded. That was the only time I ever wasn't able to buy a game, was that specific game. And I think it was because it was GTA and it was very controversial. I bought it like the first week or whatever. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. I'm curious to know more about Wolverine, but I think you're right, Chris, that we just won't be finding out for some time. As far as Bobby, what you're saying about the Last of Us factions, we talked a little bit about this last week, but I would not be surprised if that game is actually bigger than we think as far as what they're trying to do with it. I think we've been seeing it as like some sort of $10 or $15, $20 download, and maybe it will be that, but I think it might be. I wouldn't even be surprised, as I said last week, if it has a single player component of some sort where it's like you can do wave-based stuff or whatever. I don't know. We'll find out.
It might.
Every once in a while, a sponsorship opportunity crosses my desk that's undoubtedly serendipitous. And when I started messing around with Miro, well, I realized that a tool I knew I needed but couldn't quite articulate existed for me in my business. Miro can best be described as a collaborative whiteboard, which can be shared online with your coworkers, peers, friends, and others to visualize whatever it is you may be working on, discussing, or aiming at. And like the whiteboard you may be familiar with in person, you can do all sorts of things on Miro. You can write on it, sure, but you can also put sticky notes on it, or place videos and images where they make sense, or craft diagrams and more. Ultimately, it's a tool to help a group of people conceptualize a shared vision. Now, I noted that Miro's appearance in my life was serendipitous because my company, Last Stand Media, is completely remote. All of us work in different places, and we need collaborative tools to help us stay in touch and on the same page. In fact, it's been something we've been actively discussing as I discovered this tool, and so it felt like manna from heaven when I started messing around with it and realized that Miro's tools were awesome for a small enterprise like mine. Just imagine what you can do with your class group or your friends or your own company. You don't have to treat it like a work tool, of course. You and your buddies can use it to joke with each other and more, but in a professional world increasingly structured around remoteness, it's tools like Miro that will help rebind us. As you can see, Miro is creating a revolution in how we create and collaborate, so join over 20 million users today. You can sign up and use Miro today for free right now by going to miro.com/sacred to start your free account. That's miro.com/SACRED. Sign up today to take advantage of 3 free whiteboards with this exclusive offer. Go to miro.com/sacred, miro.com/SACRED, and start using Miro today. There's no reason to delay. Just 3 other pieces that I want to get through real quick, just in passing. 1047 Games, Splitgate. They raised $100 million in funding. I have no idea why everyone is so excited about this game. I was watching videos of it. I'm sure it's very fun to play, but I'm like, what the fuck? They have a $1.5 billion valuation now.
Wow.
Can you believe that? Again,
amazing.
Insomniac cost $229 million. The guys that are making Splitgate are worth $1.5 billion now. We already talked about it, but Sony leaked Destroy All Humans 2 remake, so that's going to come. So at the time we're recording this, there's going to be a THQ. Unfortunately, it sucks. I wish they were doing it before this, but there's going to be a THQ event with some announcements. Presumably that will be there.
Yeah.
And then I was shocked to see this because this is the game I was earliest attached to as probably the first game I truly evangelized as an editor at IGN. It's Shatter, 2009 PSN Brickbreaker. And it was awesome. It was a Brickbreaker with an amazing, amazing soundtrack, and it had boss fights and all this kind of cool shit. And I was a big fan of it, and I evangelized it, and I had a pretty good relationship with the developer, SIDHE. They were a New Zealand studio, and they revealed that they're working with someone to bring it back. And it's funny because I was going to talk to not this year, but I was going to bring it up to Barry next year. I'm like, we should see about Shatter, like what we can do with it. But someone beat us to the punch. All right, let's get into what we're playing here. Based on what I'm seeing, it seems like I can tie myself to Dustin, and Dustin can tie himself to Chris, and thus we will start with Chris. Chris, what have you been playing?
Yeah, so I've been playing 2 things. I've been playing Psychonauts 2, and I've been playing Deathloop. Although I don't have that much to say about Deathloop. I've spent maybe 2.5 hours with it. It's interesting. I understand what it's doing, and I think it's cool, but I don't know if it's necessarily grabbing me quite yet. I'm a little kind of confused about it. because it feels like an arcane. The thing that's bothering me most is that it reminds me a lot of Youngblood, and not in the sense that it's as bad. I don't think it's even. I don't think it's a bad game, but it's reminding me a lot, like the just the feel of it, and which I mean that does make sense that it would feel a little bit similar, but that's the one like nagging thing in my head. It's like, it's reminding me of this game that I hate, even though it's not even close. It's such a weird feeling to feel that like dissociation with it. But I'm going through it slowly. It's kind of neat, but I think what I really want to talk about is Psychonauts 2, because I'm pretty far in, I think, at this point. And I gotta say, like, I'm just wildly impressed by this game. And it's not so much that its gameplay is like particularly like in a league of its own, or that its combat is like extraordinary or anything, but like the gameplay concepts that are like here, and like just the gameplay concepts and the way that they tie into level design, and the way that those level designs like reinforce the themes of the game is like so like impressive to me. There's this like mechanic in like one level that's like really early on in the game, so I'm not like spoiling anything, but where you're just like making mental connections between like concepts in this character's head, and like connecting like success to risk, with which leads to like a gambling problem, and you have to like change that person's mind by like connecting like maybe instead of success being risk, maybe success is like moderation or something like that, and you can hear the person's like mind like changing as you're doing it, and it's just like it's just so fascinatingly designed. Like there's these like these enemies called like regrets, and they like carry these like weights that they like drop on you, and you have to like pull them away and like throw them back. And like there's this panic attack enemy that like is like really fast, and you have to like slow it down with your like psychic abilities.
So it's like an allegory of some sort.
It's like really like cleverly designed and like cleverly built, and it feels so imaginative and like varied. I feel like we talk a lot on the show, maybe not a lot, but like sometimes we talk about like how there's a big disconnect, or like sometimes a game's themes are at odds with like what the game is actually doing. Like Nathan Drake is like, he's so funny, he's like really cool, you like him, right? But he's like kind of, if the games are canon, he's like one of the worst like mass murderers in human history.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You're just supposed to like, and you're just kind of supposed to forget about that, and you do, because we understand it's a video game, but I don't know, this is such an expertly cohesive experience in that it like marries its themes, its gameplay, its story so perfectly, and it's tugging at me like emotionally, because it's just all about like doubt and empathy and like forgiveness and regret, and it's all handled so well. It's fun, it's whimsical, it's funny. It's just a very stylish game. I love the aesthetic. It's not perfect or anything. There are some like audio issues. It feels like a very Xbox PS2 game, in that like the only sounds are really like primary sound effect and speaking, and like maybe like it's not like as rich of a soundscape, and there's some storylines that are interesting and really fun but do kind of drag, and some levels are a little bit short, and I would have liked to see more of them. But this is a really huge surprise to me, and it's easily like it's an easy game of the year contender to me. Like as of right now, I'm just very impressed with how this thing turned out, especially because I just wasn't really paying that much attention to it. Like I liked the first Psychonauts just fine. Like, I thought it was fun, but this is like really, really stellar.
I'm hearing almost nothing but positive things about it, and it's a Game Pass game, obviously, and so you can check it out there if you're on Xbox for quote unquote free. But this will be the last Double Fine game I assume we get on PlayStation, so there's something there worth noting as well. But Dustin,
yeah,
let's move on to you. I want to go to Deathloop, so maybe there can be some connective tissue here between you two as you're both playing it. I haven't played it yet. What's your experience with the game so far?
So real quick, a thing that I wanted to disclose is I did get this game early and for free, but I did not solicit it as we do on, don't do on Sacred Symbols. And it's kind of an interesting anecdote that I've noticed about this game is that they've been very, very generous with review codes. I received a code from someone I knew that was reviewing the game, who they got multiple codes from Bethesda. And in addition, from some other things that I've heard from talking to people, they were very, very generous with very small outlets in getting this game, which is interesting just because you may remember a few years ago, I think it was around when Dishonored 2 came out, Bethesda gave out no review codes. And I think that really bit them on that game. And now we're seeing like a complete shift in dynamic. They've been giving out review codes for a few years now, but it's very interesting to see that shift, especially given that I think that they were worried this game was not going to sell well because Arcane games traditionally have not sold very well, despite being very critically acclaimed, as with, Deathloop. We'll have to see on the sales for that, but I wanted to share that because I found it really interesting. So I've had a lot more time with Deathloop, and I think this game is awesome. And what's funny is, Chris, I had the exact same opinion as you when I was 1 or 2 hours into this game. And honestly, the beginning of this game, not so hot, because it really, it keeps you on a leash for a long time because of at least what I'm seeing is a pretty complicated meta game. So you've seen in the trailers, there's the loop, and you have to kill these, I think it's 8 people in order to break the loop. And so what we were wondering was, okay, how does that work though in game? Like, how are you doing this? Is it a roguelike? Like, what's going on? And this is actually what is drawing me to the game the most right now, is that I, on this show, was saying how I was concerned that it looked like a more action heavy game. And I was worried that they were going to dilute some of the arcane aspects of this game. And what I've been telling a few people is, I'm like, this is like very much an arcane ass game, like through and through, to the point that I still need to finish it, because Maddie had a very different opinion in his review, because I was watching that yesterday, that he felt like it was more simplistic than Dishonored. But I actually feel like this is like more in depth in the way that like you have to figure out with these 8 people, like you have 3 sections of a day, and that's how it works. Like you have morning, afternoon, and night. And so obviously it's impossible to kill these 8 people throughout these 3 sections of the day. And so a lot of the game is going through and figuring out how to manipulate things in order to get these people together in different ways. And that's where the game gets really unique to me in, like I said, it's meta aspects. It's honestly kind of a hard game to even explain. Hopefully I haven't lost people, because that's part of the intro aspect, being kind of long and keeping you on a leash, because they really have to show you like how this game operates. And like I said, I feel like less approachable, but I don't say that in a negative way at all. I actually think that's awesome, because that's what I love about Arcane games. So Deathloop so far, very enjoyable. It's very much feels in a way like a Dishonored game in the way it has its powers, and it's the creativity of how you use the powers with weapons. I got a power just the other day that you link enemies together. So you can like link 4 enemies together, and then whatever you do to one of them happens to all of them. So you can like link up 4 dudes and then like pull off a headshot and they all drop. And it is so
style points.
Yeah, it's so satisfying, because you have this pulse or blink ability where you can like get on top of a rooftop, then you tie all the enemies together, then you'll blast the one in the head, and then you'll blink over here and sneak into the building. It's awesome. I am really, really enjoying this game. I could gush about it even more, but I'm going to save it because I want to see it all the way through. I want to see how in depth you can get with it.
Yeah, I want to put more time into it too, because I feel like I scratched the surface of some of that. Like I feel like I understand what it's trying to do, and like the complexity of it seems really cool. But in the first section, I think it was Updam, I think, like the very beginning, like when you first get out of the cave, there's this section where like I was like trying to stealth my way through it, right? And I was like, sneaking up on people and like assassinating them or whatever. And then I got to my apartment and I was just picking things up, and for some reason, I could hear some dude outside after I got into the apartment. He was like, he's in his apartment right now, I bet. And then the whole map got alerted to me. And I was like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Like, I'm so confused. And it felt like it thrusted me into this action set piece that I felt like I was just fumbling through because I just wasn't prepared for it. And I just didn't want to do that because I'm not trying to play the game that way, at least not early on when I have so little.
Right.
And the reason why I know that isn't supposed to happen is because I was playing it on my laptop before I got my PC all set up. So I actually had to restart like when I started on my PC because the cloud save didn't work. And I went through that section the first time and that didn't happen, but I didn't do anything differently. So I just like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know if it was like a bug or what.
Right.
But like something just gave me away and I don't know what I did. Like, I have no idea what that was.
I need to research more about this. I was talking to our buddy Lockmort, actually, and apparently there's some kind of like adaptive AI that changes based on your play style. I don't know to what extent, but
Yeah.
Chris, that was something that happened to me in the beginning, is that I was really trying to stealth it like Dishonored style. And that's kind of been the interesting thing for me, is that this game, it's designed kind of in that you probably do want to stealth a lot, because if you die, I think it's if you die 3 times, it's going to restart your entire loop. Kind of like a roguelike. You're going to go back and lose what you had. So you want to stealth as much as you can. At least that's been my strategy. But if you get in a firefight, it's not going to be the end of the world, kind of like in a Dishonored game. You're more likely to be able to hold your own. So it's still an interesting tightrope that I haven't quite figured out, but it hasn't been negative to me at all.
Right.
I have it, just haven't gotten to play it yet. I think I'm going to stick with Tales for a little while first, so I'll get to it at some point. But we are going to cover, I don't know if we'll do anything for Psychonauts 2. Chris, do you want to do a Psychonauts 2 Sacred Symbols Plus? Do you think it's like something well, I'm asking you in real time. Do you think it's something that's worthy of a 50,
I think
60,
so.
70-minute conversation?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, cool. So
if we have somebody else on the team who's played it, or like if it's just like even just
Maddie's played it, I think, so we can
cool.
we can make that happen. In fact, that might actually make more sense for DDU, but we'll do something for that game, and then we'll certainly do a Deathloop conversation. We have these things loosely on the calendar, and then we'll do Tales of Arise as well. Now, I want to talk about Tales with Dustin in a minute, but I do want to note about what he said about Deathloop and the codes. The way I kind of look at it is, I want us to be as decentralized as possible. I think it makes the company stronger and the content better. And so I don't continuing down the trend of saying I don't want to tell people what they need to play. If a code comes to you for Sacred Symbols, also you're a Twitch streamer, so you have like these other connections as well. I think that's okay. I'm personally not going to do that. But I did I got a code for Axiom Verge 2, and I used it. I haven't played it yet, but that's my friend. So
right,
it is a little bit weird, and we do have to play it by ear. If people have a problem with the way we're doing things, of course, let us know. We'll try to be as consistent as possible and as transparent as possible. But I wanted to say about the codes with Deathloop, it just goes into what I was saying, right? I've said in the past when I was talking about our own games, the games I've worked on, the amount of codes that you get when you put a game on PSN is fucking comical. And I've said in the past that I bet you half if every game gets as many codes as we've gotten for our games, I bet you half of the games on PSN haven't sold as many copies as the amount of codes you get. And so anyone, and I'll say this over and over again for content creators, if someone says like we don't have a code, they're lying to you. And because there are thousands of codes in that spreadsheet that they got that's randomly generated. And with Deathloop, you imagine that, and this was what I was talking to Dustin about a little bit beforehand, is there's something interesting about this game from behind the scenes, because I think Bethesda may be flooding the zone with codes because I think Sony isn't really interested in helping this game anymore. I think that it was important for them in the pre-release environment. I think they have contractual obligations with each other, but I think Sony is sensitive to the conflict of interest that exists with Deathloop, and we'll see if that plays out with Ghostwire as well. In other words, I don't know that they really are interested in like really hyping a game that will eventually come to its competitor on Game Pass, and they kind of assisted it. I think they're in an awkward position there. So I think that might have something to do with it. I don't know, but that's my theory. All right, let's move on to Tales of Arise, though, Dustin. I've only played it for a couple of hours. I'm curious, and I'm going to let you take it from here. What you think about it?
Dude, this game is awesome. That's the thing I was telling on my Twitch stream. I'm like, we're eating good right now. And I told you guys this on our group chat that like, it's nice. Deathloop is a pretty intense game that I'll play during the day. And then at nighttime when I'm trying to like chill, not that it's a chill game at all, but there's something more cozy about Tales of Arise. And I'm not super far either in that I'll put it like this. I just got my third party member. So I don't know how many hours that is. Maybe like 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours into the game. And this game is awesome. In fact, it's surprising me in ways I didn't expect, in that I didn't think that the story would be so intriguing. Like the lore. I think that's actually the good word for it, is the lore of, it has to do with these two types of people, and it has like a little bit of a sci-fi aspect of it where this one, I don't know, is it considered a race? Because it's really just like two types of humans, one enslaving the other. And it's a really interesting dynamic, and to have this sci-fi element in a very fantasy focused game is really cool. And the other thing is that the combat is really fun. They slowly introduce it to you, which is nice, because the demo, they let you use 4 characters at one, or 4 characters, and basically they throw the entire kitchen sink at you. And so to have it kind of more slowly introduced in the game is great. But it's a beautiful game as well. Like, it's really stunning on PS5. It runs at a great, I don't know if it's a lock 60, but it's good enough for me. And I've just really been loving it. This is my first Tales experience. And so, Colin, this is where I have to throw it to you as a Tales fan. How's this treating you?
It's good. I've only played it for a couple of hours. I don't know if I said it on the show, but we just got our puppy 2 days ago, our new puppy. We have 2 dogs. So it's been a bit of a handful. Actually, more of a handful because she, we have to now watch the other dog, make sure they stay up. They're very friendly with each other, but Rush wants to play with her. And so it's just a big distraction. So I've only played a little bit, and I like what I've seen so far. The trappings of Tales is there, right? And it's cool to see just the familiar stuff like gels and all of that. And the skit system I really like which are the cutscenes that happen. That's a Tales tradition as well. They have a cooking system, and they like the camping system. The battle system's a little weird because I don't know if you can remap it. I didn't really investigate, but they map attack to R1, which I find very strange in this game. And the game feels a little bit less like a fighting game than it used to. It didn't ever feel like you were playing Street Fighter, but there was, and I don't know if I've just not unlocked it yet, but there was way more to using arts than I've seen in the game so far. It's like really just, they're just kind of on the pads, but it used to be that you can like do like button combinations and have them have like a bunch of different things equipped. And I'm not very proficient. I would just use the same attacks that worked over and over again, but it just felt a little bit different in my brief time playing it. 2 things stand out to me. Number one is this game is getting like massive appeal, getting great reviews. It's already sold 1 million copies. I don't know if you saw that, which is incredible. And they announced also that Tales of Berseria has passed 2 million copies and Vesperia is past 1.5 million. So Tales is getting into kind of like Persona numbers, almost, not quite, but like starting to climb out of the A sphere. And it's nice to see. I think the thing that stuck out to me the most, 2 things other than that, what I was just saying, Iron Mask, goofy.
Yeah.
Don't I can't wait for him to take that thing off. I went in blind. I saw as the audience knows, the game was announced. I saw like the cinematic like reveal trailer. I haven't seen anything since. So I was going in totally blind, which was the intent. And so one thing I got from vibes is I got Final Fantasy VI vibes from the story so far, because it seems like it's about, as you were saying, these 2 races. One race like uses magic and can harness it, and the other race can't, and how the race that can't is taking advantage of the race that can. I mean, that is Final Fantasy VI. That's what Final Fantasy VI is about. That's the plot, is about the decimation, decimating this like magic using race because they want their power. So that was cool. That was a nice little piece of familiarity for me. And we have quite a few people writing in about the game. Austin Clements wrote in and said, "Hey fellas, this question is mostly for Colin and Dustin. While I'm really enjoying the story and gameplay for Tales of Arise, one thing stuck out for me: the microtransactions for in-game currency. I was wondering why Gald is the in-game currency in Tales games, was hard to get besides selling items, and is because you can use real life money to buy them. I haven't seen an RPG do this, and I don't think it almost seems like the devs want you to spend your money for more gold, and I am not a fan of that. What do you guys think? And are you enjoying the game? So we talked a little bit about that, but have you noticed so I haven't really interacted with this too much, but I've seen complaints about this, and it's not unique to this game, but I have to make the decision when I play more if the balance is pitched in the wrong direction intentionally. Because if that is true, if what Austin is saying is indeed my interpretation as well, it's a big problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not at the point yet to get a feel for the balance, but if it is the case, that really, really sucks. I don't know. It's they take every opportunity, not every opportunity, but every time you go to a campfire, it shows you the PlayStation. There's like a PlayStation Store icon. There's one in the menu, and they already have like all of these character outfits. I mean, that's very Japanese to have the character outfits ready to go. You got to get the swimsuit set, of course.
There is an annoyance there, though. You're right about that, but there is an annoyance about they keep like in games when it says there's something new in a submenu, so it shows you like an icon that says there's something new. Those icons stay there for the DLC, and that annoys me because I just feel like that's a design quirk to get people to try to get rid of it by going into the store. So I noticed that there are like I have to judge it a little bit more. And I just played Scarlet Nexus, which is another Bandai Namco published game, and it wasn't this egregious. So I don't know. We'll see. I wanted to get your take, though, Dustin, real quick on the story and like the voice acting, because Michael Wertelli wrote in and said, "Hey, all. This one is mostly for Colin, but open to all, of course. Colin, thanks to you not shutting the fuck up about Tales of Arise and how excited you were to play it, I decided to pick it up. The only other Tales game I've tried is Berseria. It didn't vibe with me. Now with Arise, it is scratching an itch I didn't realize I had. The combat is solid, and I'm really enjoying the story, but the dialogue is god-awful. I want to know all about these characters and their backstories, but the moment-to-moment dialogue irritates the shit out of me at times. So to round up a long intro to a short question, how are you enjoying Tales of Arise, and how do you feel about the story and dialogue? Thanks for the amazing shows." So I wanted to bring this up because, and I had mentioned, I had just got off of Scarlet Nexus, which was like anime overload. And I liked it a lot, but I had a walk. I couldn't deal with it by the end. And I skipped the ending. I have no idea what the game's even about by the end. So just like, I want to get through this. It's fun to play, but this game gives me similar vibes. Now I'm walking in with eyes open. It's a Bandai Namco game, but the voice acting, I always find strange in these games. And I was curious if you feel the same way, Dustin. Like, with the exception of some major AAA JRPGs, like major $100 million games, like you're thinking about like Final Fantasy VII Remake or something like that, I feel like the voice acting is always not great. And I've kind of come to realize that this is just the way it is. Like, this is the delivery of these games. There are few examples of it not being like this. And so Michael's new to this. You're much less new to it. And certainly I am as well. I feel like he has to understand that this is part of it if you're going to play these games. So what do you think?
Right. I was actually planning on playing this game in Japanese just because I expected the English voice acting to be annoying. But when I played the demo, I noticed that there was a lot of either talking either during a battle or out in the open world, and the text was like real small in the bottom left corner of the screen. And it was distracting when I was trying to play the game to have to read that. In just that it's the way that the game operates. Like, there's people talking while I'm supposed to be playing. And so when I started it, I actually thought, I'm going to try this on English just to see how it is. And a lot of people have said that they don't like it. And it's not amazing, but it's not actively annoying me either so far. I know there's a lot more main party members to get, and one of them may just annoy me to the point that I need to switch it to Japanese. But for the time being, I'm playing on English for the convenience of not having to read in certain sections, and it's not been that bad. But again, I might just be used to having an ear for other Japanese games that I've played in English. It's just, I don't know, it's part of it in a way.
Well, we'll both have more to say about this in the coming weeks, and we'll do our review discussion on Sacred Symbols Plus in the coming weeks as well. And again, for Deathloop, we'll do the same. I think Defining Duke Ultimate will get Psychonauts too, but you can listen to that on Patreon as well. The other two games that I was playing over the last week, Metal Gear Solid 2, I spent about 15 or 16 hours with it. I beat it, and Dagan and I did an episode of Knockback, which is our retro and nostalgia podcast on The Last Stand, all about it. So come check that out if you want. I just want to say it was fun to play it again, and it's really great. Mm-hmm. It's a challenge to play because of the controls. Like I said, I struggle with it, but it was a real joy to play. And one thing I just have to say is it is incredibly prescient. I actually couldn't even believe it. I didn't remember much of the last half of the game. I was talking to Dagan about it on the show. I have very specific memories of getting and playing the game senior year of high school. And then I'm not sure that I ever played it all the way through again after that. And so it was kind of cool because I got to like Fat Man or whatever, and I hadn't remembered much of it. And then after that, I was like, I don't remember fucking any of this. So something shut off in my mind. But it almost feels like a game that is necessary to play today, just so you can see how predictive of the reality we live in it was in 2001. I can't believe it. I won't say anymore, but yeah, Chris.
It's insane, man. Like it is better today, I think, than it was at the time. And stiff controls aside, I'm usually somebody who can like kind of get through that pretty quick. But I know that was like a stickler. That's the reason why I can't do 1, like because 1 is like incredibly stiff.
Yeah, it is
like wildly. Like I can't. Like it's like I can't do it anymore. But 2 is like right on that line where it's like, all right, at least I can see what the pixels are. You know, I can understand what I'm looking at. I can do this. But it is an amazing game. Like story wise, especially, and even just like the mechanics of it are like really solid. And I would recommend it to literally anybody.
Yeah, play it on. You can play the PS2 original. It's on Xbox too, but you can play it on Xbox 360, PS3, Vita as well. And so, yeah, shout out to that game. And really looking forward to, by the way, playing MGS3, which I have never played past like the first hour. And I'm more excited about it than ever now to play it. For some reason, I just never cared. And now I just was, now I'm really into it. So very excited about that. And then I'm also playing Chasm, which I was talking about last week. BitKid's, I guess, randomly generated Metroidvania. It's fun just playing it at night and while I'm watching football and all the rest. So that's that. I did want to have one more shout out here, though. The Assassin AK-47 wrote in and said, hey, CDC, I just wanted to shout out Life is Strange True Colors real quick. I know it's going to be overshadowed by Deathloop and Tales of Arise this week, but it's a wonderful game. Probably the best in the series. Deserves to be talked about more. Hopefully one of you play it and share your thoughts on it. It's truly incredible. Having the full game with all the episodes already playable is a huge plus. No more having to wait months for the next episode to come out. Thank you for all that you do. Keep being the best to ever do it. I totally agree. Chris and I went on and on about how the episodic releases probably actually contributed to the death of Telltale because people were like, oh, I'll just wait until it's done. And then they just never play it. I mean, I did that with 5 different games probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to give a shout out to Life is Strange. I think I said last week that I want to play the original, the remake first or the remaster first. And that has been delayed till next year. So I do want to play this, particularly because a buddy of mine who I used to co-host Podcast Beyond with, Ryan Clements, is one of the writers of True Colors. So I would like to support him as well. So yeah, shout out to that as well. And we'll have more to say about it maybe in the future.
Yeah.
All right, boys, let's get into the actual news now, 2 hours into the show almost.
Christ.
Some interesting things to talk about here. And we'll get your take on them. Number 1, that Twisted Metal TV show we talk about every now and again is proceeding apace, and now it has its star. According to entertainment publication Deadline, actor Anthony Mackie will play protagonist John Doe in a show PlayStation TV and movie vertical PlayStation Productions is planning to pitch as a live-action half-hour per episode series. Mackie is, of course, best known for his high-profile role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where he played Sam Wilson, a.k.a. Falcon, a.k.a. Captain America, across 6 different films. The character he's set to portray, John Doe, was a driver in the early PlayStation 2 hit 2001's Twisted Metal Black. Deadline's insiders, quote, say Sony TV and PlayStation Productions are extremely high on the package, and a plan is in the works to take it to buyers soon, end quote. Interestingly, we have confirmation of what we sort of assume, but we now know for sure. Twisted Metal's TV iteration is planned on being an action comedy. Indeed, you may recall that this pitch comes from Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, longtime writing partners behind 2009's Zombieland and, more importantly, 2016's Deadpool and its 2018 sequel. These films apparently heavily influenced Twisted Metal's TV show, which is described as being, quote, about a motor-mouthed outsider offered a chance at a better life, but only if he can successfully deliver a mysterious package across a post-apocalyptic wasteland. With the help of trigger-happy car thief, he'll face savage marauders driving vehicles of destruction and other dangers of the open world, including a deranged clown who drives an all-too-familiar ice cream truck, end quote. Michael Jonathan Smith, the writer of the surprise hit Karate Kid TV series sequel Cobra Kai, I can't read today, is leading the show's writing and production. Twisted Metal, which was a Western launch game on the original PlayStation in 1995, remains one of Sony's most iconic IP, though it has been long dormant. Indeed, the last Twisted Metal game came to PlayStation 3 in 2012. Word of Twisted Metal advancing through production comes a random but somewhat related piece of news. Ubisoft is planning a driver game. It too has been dormant for about 10 years, and it too is described as live action. This according to website gamesindustry.biz. Tyler wrote in, said, "Hey fellas, I'm a huge Twisted Metal fan. The original game on PS1 actually got me hooked into gaming and the PlayStation ecosystem. With rumors of a new entry in the works, I have to ask, is this the final attempt for the series to stay relevant? I feel like each iteration, while great, seems to be pushing the franchise into irrelevancy, which sucks because I feel like the way Twisted Metal does vehicular combat makes it stand out from all the first-person shooters and third-person adventure games. Just curious with your thoughts on the franchise and this rumor going around." Chris, Twisted Metal. We haven't seen Twisted Metal since 2012. The PS3 iteration was well-liked, but didn't sell well. And that was the last time we really saw anything from it. David Jaffe, of course, went on to do Drawn to Death, and he's out now. There's long been rumored a game being in development as well. It seems like Jaffe is not involved in it, as I understand, which sucks, but is what it is. And it seems like they might be planning these two things in tandem, although we don't really know. I'm just curious what you make of this news. I mean, they're moving forward with this. It has a big actor, and Sony seems enthusiastic about it. And I feel like this is just such a strange IP to explore.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about this really, because like I loved Twisted Metal when I was a young lad. You know, it was a really solid PS1 game. Like I remember there was one. Was it Twisted Metal Black on PSP? Was another one?
No, that was Twisted Metal. Oh no, that came, but that was a Head On or something like that, right? Twisted
Head On, yeah. It was Head On,
right?
Yeah, and like I remember liking these games, and I think they're fun for the time. I just feel like those games decidedly from a design perspective, I don't know gameplay wise if they hold up well on their own now, unless they were just kind of like independently. It feels like an indie game, if it were brought in today. It's not exactly like a Crash Bandicoot or like a Spyro where it's like this, it could be remastered into this like really broad, really good looking like collectathon that still functions really well. I feel like you'd have to tweak it pretty heavily for it to stand out as like a reasonable first party thing now. But then even just like from a television perspective, like I don't know what story there is there that you could really like twist out of it in a way that would be like super compelling. At the same time though, I feel like it's also like kind of like a really wise thing to do because it's such a weird IP that the expectations for it must be just so like, imagine being like, I think Twisted Metal might be the new Breaking Bad. Like imagine no one's going to think that. So they kind of have a lot of freedom to kind of like mess around with this like long dormant IP and kind of tweak things to make it work and have fun with it in a way that isn't so overbearing as it would be if somebody was like, if they were making like a Last of Us TV show where everybody's eyes are on it and that there's a lot of supervising going on and being like, you can't do that. That's like, that's contradictory to the lore or whatever. No one cares about the lore of like Calypso or like or fucking Axel. Like no one cares why Axel is standing in the middle of two tires. He just is.
He just is.
So
yeah.
And I think I don't know. I feel like I'm just split pretty evenly. I feel like this could be a really good idea, but I also feel like it's just baffling to even reach into at the same time.
I kind of agree with you. I think Twisted Metal is incredibly important to the heritage of PlayStation. Again, this was on the console in the West immediately, and it's important. And I think also when you see games like Vigilante Aid and later on, even different kinds of, tangential games like Smuggler's Run and other games that just Twisted Metal was kind of setting the stage for this. And so it's important in that respect. And I love what you said about how, because there are no expectations involved with it, you might get something really extraordinary because they can do something with it. Dustin, though, I'm wondering what you think of this announcement. We've talked about this in the past, but I wonder, like, are they interested in making this like Mad Max in some way? It sounds like it could be really cool. Mad Max is very expensive to make and make it look right. But the comedy, 30 minutes, could be interesting. Maybe a Netflix series or something. I'm not particularly moved by this actor, but I'm not an MCU person, so there's that. What do you make of it?
I think that it's clear Sony is so interested in the cross media pie, right? We see this, To me, like the fact that this is happening means without a shadow of a doubt, there's a new Twisted Metal game coming. In fact, I just quickly Google searched that there's a guy, Tom Henderson, who he writes for DualShockers, that he has a good track record with Battlefield leaks. He posted an image of Sweet Tooth and it just said 2023. So the point is there are leaks going around about a new Twisted Metal game. And so, yeah, this would make a lot of sense to have both the show and the game around the same time. It's one of those things too where you got to be careful when you're doing a cross media thing, that if one is great and the other one completely sucks, then the one that sucks is going to weigh down the thing that's good. Right? So they got to be,
that's a good point.
They got to be careful, especially with something like Twisted Metal that's such a like, it's a really, how do I say this? It's a video game. Like I don't know if it's going to translate. The fact that they have the Deadpool guys attached to it, that is somewhat promising, and that I think a lot of people were like, yeah, you can't make Deadpool a movie. It won't work because it only works in this format, and they figured out a way. I don't know. Maybe no one thought that. I just know that Deadpool is very like fourth wall breaking and stuff like that. And they thought that maybe that wouldn't work for cinema, but they figured it out. So it'll be interesting to see this come together. I have nostalgic feelings about Twisted Metal. I wasn't a huge fan, but I remember that was a game that I rented from the grocery store as a kid. And actually, I was helping Jaffe with his stream audio a few months ago now, before Colin was going to be back on. And it was just me and him. I'm helping with his audio. And I was like, we were testing something. I'm like, hey, I'm here with David Jaffe. I remember renting Twisted Metal, and now I'm here helping him with his audio. So
yeah, it's awesome. I mean, it's super cool.
Yeah, it's cool to be connected to him. It's cool that he created this and that it's still going on.
It's going to be weird seeing, ray tracing photorealistically rendered Anthony Mackie in this video game, which is undoubtedly going to happen, I would imagine.
Probably so. I mean, it's kind of not really related, but just seeing someone's image in a game. Did you guys, you're not really TV watchers or sports watchers, but did you see the State Farm guy and NBA 2K?
Jake from State Farm?
Dude,
that was fucking amazing. I watched that whole clip like 4 times. No, I'm like, this is so bonkers.
That is such a mesmerizing clip to me because, and for those of you who don't know, we're talking about an NBA 2K. I think it's like the most recent NBA 2K game or something, where the player character is walking around like presumably a hub world, and he runs into literally Jake from State Farm. And the best thing about it is Jake from State Farm is rendered so well. And then it cuts to the player character and he looks like a fucking homunculus. Like it looks like it's such a jarring, like you could clearly tell like where the money went, and it was not towards the main character.
It was all on Jake,
It was all on Jake from State Farm, who, by the way, ran the State Farm store in NBA 2K where you could get his drip.
Yeah, he says you got to get that drip. And what I loved about it was so earnestly delivered. Like their interaction was so. I think what's so fascinating about it is it's probably about as good as it can be, and I think that's what that's what's so fascinating. It's like, wow, I'm mesmerized by this.
It felt really real for a sponsorship, like it felt like, oh, this is conceivably a very real and genuine conversation, but also the very nature that it's happening in my video game is so egregious that I can't believe it. It's like worlds colliding in that moment. It's like you don't know what to make of it. Your brain stops for a minute as you're watching him just be like deliver his famous slogan. Yeah, I can't believe that's a real clip.
Yeah, go check that out. I mean, you'll find it. And I love someone responded to it on Twitter, like the original clip, with a picture of the guy wearing the State Farm shirt. He just looks, it's very funny. People want to go check that out. All right, so we'll keep an eye out for Twisted Metal. It hasn't even been picked up yet, but if Sony's bullish about it, I assume it will be. And maybe 2023.
Yeah.
And like you said, if the 2023 timing of the game is there, then it'll all sync up. And I don't know, they might look at Rocket League in some of these games and be like, well, there's something here. I mean, the Rocket League's not a destruction game, but
well, didn't they do Destruction All-Star? What was that weird?
Oh yeah, Destruction All-Stars. Yeah, that's oh yeah. The fuck am I saying? I mean, they just did one of these. No one cared.
Yeah.
So that makes it even weirder, right? Because like you just anyone who is interested in this game, you just got them already. And now I don't know. We'll see. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We'll let them do a more proper announcement.
Yeah.
Number 2, as promised, PlayStation is bringing new original games to iOS and Android, and the first of this new batch has been announced. It's called Wipeout Rush, and it's coming to both major phone operating systems in 2022. The studio publishing and co-developing the game is called Rogue Games, a purveyor of mobile titles, port and support work, and more. They're working alongside another team called Amuzo, which dwells in all of those spaces as well. Of course, Wipeout Rush is the newest entry in Sony's beloved Wipeout futuristic racing franchise, and it's actually been quite some time since we've seen an entry. The very first game was a PS1 launch window game from 1995, and the franchise was long steered by a team called Psygnosis, which would later become Sony Liverpool or Liverpool Studio. The first-party team went under in 2012. Sony had an unusual propensity back in the day to let Wipeout kind of meander. It came to Saturn, N64, and PC in the 90s, so it perhaps isn't a huge surprise to see it as a testbed for mobile. We got the Wipeout Omega collection on PS4 in 2017, which combined Wipeout HD, Wipeout HD Fury, and Wipeout 2048. Wipeout 2048, of course, was originally a PS Vita Western launch game from 2012, which happened to be Studio Liverpool's final outing. Now, the press release makes it clear that you shouldn't expect traditional Wipeout here. Quote, Wipeout Rush takes the classic anti-gravity racing experience and turns the series on its head, thrusting players into the role of the team manager, where winning is determined by decisions rather than reflexes. Players are in charge of selecting the right ships, as well as ensuring they are properly upgraded and equipped to win each race, end quote. The press release announcing the game claims there will be multiple modes, 5 tracks, 60 ships, 12 championship cups, boss battles, collectibles, and more. We don't know yet if there will be trophy support, which will be obvious. Andrew Arana wrote in and said, hey guys, just a quick correction. We talked about this last week. The Wipeout Omega collection actually had an update in 2018 that added VR capability, and it is by far the best VR experience you can have on PlayStation. Absolutely worth hooking the headset up again to try out. We were just talking about that, so I wanted to bring that up as a correction. Yeah. But Isaac Hodgins Downs has the more salient inquiry. He says, hey gang, what the hell is Wipeout Rush? Who asked for this? What sacrificial ritual leads them to think Wipeout fans want a single-player card-based racer? This is what Chris means when he says loopholes ruin games. You get a racing series turned into a card game.
Loopholes? Loot boxes?
What he says, loot box. Wait, this is what Chris means when he says loot boxes ruin get cards. Oh yeah, maybe that's what he meant. Sorry, yeah.
No, weird. Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, it does say loopholes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm curious what you, Chris, you're a Wipeout fan, so I'm just curious what you thought of this, because I saw this app actually was announced right before we started recording, so I had to do a little bit of research. On one hand, I'm like, this is fucking comical, because who the hell wants a Wipeout game where you're not racing? But at the same time, it's a Wipeout game I would actually play. So for me personally, it's great, but I assume that this is not what people expected. And I was also kind of curious because Wipeout doesn't seem like a game that you couldn't get to work on a touchscreen.
That's exactly what's annoying, is that like Wipeout as is a great mobile game. Like as it is, you could put that on any phone, you could put that on an iPad and it would run really well. It's not a complicated game. They got it running on PSP in 2005. You know, it's not a complicated game. In fact, I think it's actually, I think it was actually a little bit more appealing in that kind of like lower res state. There's like something like really nostalgic about it. But I don't know, man. This shit, like, it's I hate when people say like, ah, man, that thing you love, guess what we did? We turned it on its head. Have you ever been turned on your head? It's not like a positive connotation to be turned on your head. I don't know why this is like a marketing thing that people have thought is like, just sounds good to say. Hey, that thing you love, we kicked it over and it got it got bludgeoned on the street. I don't know. It's just, I love Wipeout. Like, I'm not like a massive fan, all right? Like, I'm not like, I don't know like the names of the developers, or like I haven't played every single game in the series or anything, but it's a really special game to me. It's a game that was like kind of like always around when I was younger, and it's something that I like remember fondly. And it's like, it just seems like a missed opportunity to just like, why wouldn't you just like, this is a fine game. Like if you want like a card management game, like that's fine, I guess. But like, why not also put Wipeout as is on mobile? Like, I feel like that's just so much better and so much wiser. I don't even think you would have to really do much of anything. You could even probably port Wipeout Pure, if you still have that code, to mobile, and it would probably run really, really well. So it's just bizarre to me that this is the angle they went as like their only attempt. because they had to make this. Like, they had to make this new style of game, like, from the ground up, presumably, in order for it to, like, work. So, like, why not just port something that already exists and make money that way and have something that's more faithful and more real to the series, and then you could do this thing, and then nobody would really have a problem, because it's just two ways to enjoy a franchise as opposed to just the only way on mobile. It just feels, I don't know. I wouldn't have made this decision if I was in charge of this. I would have at least released two separate things, or like maybe like this as like a mini game, or like a different mode in a proper like mobile Wipeout or something like that. I don't know, but I'm also not a mobile gamer, so I don't know like what these people play. I don't know what they're looking for. Maybe they're not looking for a racing game. That's totally fine. That's fair. I have very little experience with that, but I don't know. To me, it's just like a really weird decision that I just don't understand.
I don't think Sony believes in this one, and there are 3 reasons why I think that is when I was reading about it today. Number one, PlayStation is mentioned virtually nowhere in the trailer or in the press release. You have to go to the very end and then like go and look at the trademark, and it's like Sony Computer Entertainment or something. Second thing is that this is nowhere to be found on PlayStation's social media feeds as of the time we're recording this. Third thing is that this is nowhere to be found on PlayStation blog. So I agree with you, Chris, because it seems like a test, but why do a test that you're not even going to give any love to? If you feel like, they tried to turn Uncharted into a card game. I actually liked it, but a lot of people didn't fight for fortune on Vita. So it's like put your back behind, put your back into it a little bit here. If you're asking to do this, if you let them have the Wipeout IP, and by the way, this studio is run by Matt Casamassina, who I used to work with at IGN. People will know him as the longtime, legend. He's basically a legendary editor at IGN. He ran IGN Nintendo for like 20 years. So I look at this and I just read between the lines, and I see that a game we were I just see the whole pattern. Jim Ryan gives an interview, says the games are closer than we think on mobile. Then a few weeks later, this game is not leaked, but just eked out on websites. No acknowledgement from PlayStation at all. They acknowledge everything that they care about. Maybe they'll acknowledge it later. And I feel like they didn't put it on PlayStation blog or anything because they don't want the comments. They're not tweeting about it because they don't want the comments. And so it is confusing. Dustin, what do you think about Wipeout, in which you play as a manager of a team?
Yeah, well, you have to adapt game. You don't have to, but usually it's a decent strategy to adapt games for mobile. We saw Nintendo do this with Mario and Super Mario Run. They knew that a D-pad on a phone screen isn't great, so they turned it into something that made more sense. But there is the element of like taking it probably too far, where it's like, well, what really about this other than it's not really a Wipeout game. It doesn't feel like a Wipeout game. Something really funny. I'm looking at, you mentioned the trailer. I didn't even know this trailer existed. So I was watching it while you guys were talking. And on IGN's post of it, there's a comment from IGN that says, update, due to an error in the initial trailer, this is the final version. So there was some kind of mistake in the trailer that they had to do a patch and put out a new trailer. And of course, the comments are people like, what's the error? And the response was, someone said the game as a whole. So this is just weird. To me, it makes more sense that you would want a Wipeout game like this. This would be something perfect that, hey, we got a new Wipeout game on PS5. It's going to be awesome. 4K 60. It's going to blow your balls out. It's going to look so great, right? Here's a fun mobile game to get you, since you're in that mindset already, right? Like you want it maybe like more of a marketing tool. This game feels like a marketing tool for Wipeout, but there's no Wipeout game to market. Just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's what's confusing about it to me, is that like, let's say you get people involved in Wipeout. You're like, oh man, I really like managing Wipeout. Where can I get more Wipeout? And then they go to PlayStation and it's a racing game that they have to actually play. And they're like, what? This isn't a management game? I don't know. It just it feels confusing. Kind of thrown together.
Right. It's a supplement to a greater experience. It reminds me a lot of NFL Head Coach, which was a very short run EA published coaching game that came out on PS2 alongside Madden, I think for 2 years. So you had the option to play as like the GM and the coach in this one experience, which wasn't very popular, or you have this ability to play in the more proper way. And so I agree, it is weird to do one and not the other. But I did read a quote from Matt Casamassina on IGN that is not in the press release. And he says, quote, "If I want that visceral, immersive, intense racing experience, I'll find it waiting on PlayStation," end quote. So I don't know. Does he mean that? Are they talking about the Omega Collection, or are they talking about something new? I would find it hard to believe that Sony would be so dumb as to think that this is the next move for Wipeout 10 years after the last game. So I just feel like there's more. And we'll figure it out. I'm trying to keep an open mind. I actually like what the game, again, that's what I said at the top. I like what the game sounds like. It's just, I haven't played Wipeout since I had a fucking Sony Vaio in 1996. And I don't play the game. So this isn't for me anyway. It's like, if you want me to play Wipeout, cool, you've made a Wipeout game for me. But I don't know if that's your market.
Right.
And I'm also interested, I want to get your guys' gut check on this. Trophy support. Chris.
For this, for the mobile game.
Yeah, this will be the first mobile game, if it has trophy support, to have trophies.
I would assume, right? Like that feels to me like an obvious thing that they would be dumb not to do that, because this seems like a pretty low risk thing. Like Wipeout's a pretty old series. Like nobody's going to be like upset at this to the point where they're not going to like jump at the heels of a new Wipeout game if it actually does come out. So like I feel like this is where you want to just kind of get your testing out of the way and be like, let's see if we can get trophy support running on Apple, or on mobile. I would bet that there would be trophies on it.
I hope so. I'll definitely play it if there are. Dustin?
No, I'm going to say absolutely not. I think it's a great idea for every reason Chris just laid out, but I do not have the confidence that Sony can figure it out, honestly. Like, because think about what they got to do on the back end. You'll have to, in order to get the trophies, you have to log in to your PSN account, which granted they have the PlayStation app that you can do that, but the app really wasn't very good until PS5. The PS4 app was never very good. So then you have a new vertical of the type of trophy, in that it is a mobile trophy. And so they have to create a distinction in their system for mobile trophies. I just don't see them putting that amount of effort into it, even though I think it would be smart. But we got to be realistic with the Sony. They're I'm not an engineer. I can never figure out half the or not even half any of the stuff they do. But we got to go based on experience on this one.
Yeah, it's a fair answer, but I feel confident that it will, because I just feel like, how can you not do that? How can you think that you can't? You have to make these feel like real games to someone, or no one's going to play them. It'll be like Run Sackboy Run or something like that. Like, no one cares. You need. I was looking at the PS5 trophy run, and they put the new icons up, PS3, PS4, Vita. They have all new icons. And I was trying to visualize, I'm like, what would a mobile thing look like? What would a tag where it says like mobile, or maybe they have some name for it? But I don't know. I hear both of your points of view. Very tempting, Dustin, to agree with you, just because Sony always fucks up. But this just seems obvious. But we'll find out. We'll hold the phone on this for now.
Wow.
Number 3, PlayStation and its first-party studio Media Molecule have unceremoniously shut down the servers and all online services for every LittleBigPlanet game still supported, save one, LittleBigPlanet 3. Word comes by way of a posting on LittleBigPlanet's official social media pages. To catch you up here, if you're unaware, LittleBigPlanet has been under serious external strain from hackers for most of this year, and it seems that Sony has finally thrown its hands up. Apologizing for the outage of all LBP servers while they were figuring it out, they claim victory, having saved all 10 million plus community levels for play in LittleBigPlanet 3 on PS4, going all the way back to the original LittleBigPlanet, which came out exclusively to PS3 in 2008. But the aforementioned original LittleBigPlanet, its 2011 sequel on PS3, the 2012 Vita native iteration of LittleBigPlanet, and the PS3 port of LittleBigPlanet 3 from 2014 are now all permanently offline. Media Molecule writes in part, quote, "While we have no doubt that this news will come as a big disappointment to a lot of you, ultimately, this is the best way to protect the LittleBigPlanet community and to ensure that our online environment remains safe," end quote. In other words, there are too many vectors for intrusion for them to keep up with. And that seems fair enough. The first 2 games on PS3 were made by Media Molecule, but the third game came from Sumo Digital, as did the more recent Sackboy: A Big Adventure on PS4 and PS5. I wrote PS3 and PS4 here. The Vita game, on the other hand, came from Double 11, a longtime partner of Sumo Digital, best known these days for its development of 2020's Minecraft Dungeon and its co-development of the ever-popular console iteration of Rust. Justice ACB wrote in and said, "Greetings, boys. Sackboy has fallen. After months of crisis, server support for LittleBigPlanet 1, 2, and 3 for PS3 and Vita is ending. Is LittleBigPlanet dead? Is this flame of the PS3 era extinguished? Has the poor sack been thrown into the washing machine just to be shredded up? Do you all think there is a place for this series this generation? Will Stephen Fry ever work again? And secondly, if Sackboy is gone, will his place be filled with the likes of Team Asobi or God King Mark Cerny?" I don't think LittleBigPlanet is dead because Sackboy: A Big Adventure just came out in November on PS4 and PS5 as a launch game. So I don't know if and LittleBigPlanet 3 is still alive and well, in quotes, on PS4 from 2014 with all of the stages from all of the games, which is very cool that they did that. But let's go to you first, Dustin. I was reading the comments about this on forums and under the tweet that they made, and it's really quite histrionic. I feel like people have to understand that these old 14-year-old games are getting attacked, and there's no reason to keep them online because they're just vectors for intrusion. And it's not like each of them are their own unique games. I assume the trophies are no longer acquirable and stuff, so that sucks. And that happened without any warning, which is unfortunate if you were going for them. But I feel like it's to be expected. Like, why are you still playing LittleBigPlanet 1, first of all? No offense, but why would you still be playing that? And a LittleBigPlanet 2? These are 10-year-old games, right? So I'm not so upset about this. What do you think, Dustin?
My question is, are you still able to play not that this is the reason why a lot of people play these games, but can you still play the single player with the servers down?
Yeah, you can play the single player functionality of the games work. You just can't do the share create functionality.
Well, to me, then unless there's a detail missing, it seems like a non-issue if you're able to access all of that in LittleBigPlanet 3 with all of the old levels still being accessible, right? So if you want to play the single player of those old games, they're still there. But if you want to do the community content, then it's available on PlayStation 4. So yeah, it's unfortunate. And I feel like there has to be a detail I'm missing if people are really upset, because it doesn't really make sense to me.
I think people just want to be upset at Sony right now. Chris, I'm curious what you make of this. It just seems like not a lot, but a little bit of drama for nothing. What's surprising to me is that this story isn't even being reported almost anywhere. So maybe that indicates that LittleBigPlanet really doesn't have any resonance anymore. What do you think about the future viability of Sackboy?
I think there's still room for that series to grow. I think it's possible for LittleBigPlanet to return, like in as a proper like PS5 title in the future, like maybe like even like further revamped than it used to be. But like I really do think like this is just a situation where it's just sad to see games die. I just think people, because there are people probably who are angry at Sony about this who have never played LittleBigPlanet, or people who like aren't even really that big fans. It's just the very nature that like a game is being shut down without warning is upsetting to people, especially when it's a game that is important for a not a brand so much as just just an important signifier of like of its time. That's a very iconic game, and so to see it kind of die out of nowhere, all because the people on the back end kind of fucked up when they were writing the code, is like, that's unceremonious and depressing, and I understand why people are bummed about it. But at the same time, there's a reason why this isn't being reported by a lot of people, and it's because there is probably, and I don't know if I feel like I'm probably right when I say this is probably affecting maybe like 100 people max. Like I can't imagine that many people are playing LittleBigPlanet on base PS3 in 2021 who connects it
to
the fucking internet.
Yeah. I agree with you in the sense that it probably does affect very few people, because anyone who's playing LittleBigPlanet is playing LittleBigPlanet 3, and they're not going to even know that this happened at all unless they're reading about it. So that's a great point. And of course, Media Molecule is just far too busy to working on Dreams to get back in there and fix anything. But I don't blame them. This to me is not a huge deal. As I said, though, the only people it sucks for are the trophy hunters, and I feel for them because I don't know, like there must be online trophies for these games. People very carefully plan these things out, and when they announce server short outages, there's usually big rushes to go get these trophies. So I imagine that there might be like some people out there that were spent all of this time, and then they're like, "Oh my god, like you just pulled the plug on me." That's the only people I can imagine this really being super relevant to. So I'm in agreement. Nonetheless, we wish LittleBigPlanet the best, and I agree that it could live again. But he was asking here, Justice ACB, he or she was asking if Team Asobi is taking over for this. I do think Astrobot is the better, icon at this point for Sony. Sackboy though is really important, and Chris, you said it. I would argue, even though LittleBigPlanet came out after Uncharted, I would argue LittleBigPlanet was the first really important differentiator for PlayStation 3. Uncharted was a slower burn. People might remember that Uncharted took a while to find people, and Uncharted 2 was, of course, in 2009, the game that really brought it to the next level. So LittleBigPlanet has a really important heritage on PS3 because that was one of the first big guns, and Sony bought them because of it. So because Media Molecule made that first game as a second party team. All right, number 4. Reliable rumors indicate Call of Duty is treading new ground with 2022's iteration. Website Video Games Chronicle confirms reporting from Call of Duty insider Tom Henderson that the game is codenamed Project Cortez, and it will be a sequel to 2019's Modern Warfare revival from Activision-owned studio Infinity Ward, the studio behind the original Call of Duty in 2003, as well as 2007's Modern Warfare, 2009's Modern Warfare 2, 2011's Modern Warfare 3, and others. The website says that, quote, according to people with knowledge of Activision's plans, Modern Warfare's sequel will include a campaign involving U.S. Special Forces fighting a covert war against Colombian drug cartels, end quote. As noted by VGC, Infinity Ward would conceivably be ready to go next, with fellow Call of Duty-centric teams Treyarch, Raven, and Sledgehammer more recently released or upcoming COD titles. There's little else to say here, other than that this seems to be a rock-solid report from reliable sources, and will mark a change of Call of Duty thematically that the franchise truly demands. Nearly 20 years after launch. Chris, what do you make of this? I was thrilled to see this news because this seems like the first truly different Call of Duty game, maybe since Advanced Warfare, but I think you can maybe say ever. And
yeah,
I don't know if it's going to work out or not, but I was more intrigued by this than I have been about many things Call of Duty related in recent years.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sure seems like it will be different. but I think
you're not optimistic.
We all know better. Like we all know that like Call of Duty sells, and they have no reason to change it really. Like they might change it thematically, and there might be like maybe like a new style, aesthetically, which would be cool, But I think ultimately, at the end of the day, what we're going to be getting is a Call of Duty game, and I have learned that expecting that series to evolve in any real meaningful way is just a one-way ticket to disappointment. So to me, it's like it could be cool. Like I think it has the bones to have like a really interesting story, which Call of Duty's had several good campaigns,
for sure.
And that's pretty cool. Like I think that has that's a really interesting angle to approach Call of Duty from. But I think ultimately, like, we're going to get another Call of Duty game, and we know that. I think deep down in our hearts,
right?
I think we know that.
To me, because you're right. I mean, there's nothing to be truly excited about. I think the most interesting thing that they could say about Call of Duty is that they were not going to make one next year. And just be like, we're gonna really go, the Assassin's Creed style. We're gonna go back and really figure it out. But they, like you said, why would they ever do that? We're never going to see that happen. Dustin, what do you think about Call of Duty going to Colombia? I smell controversy. I'm interested in Activision Blizzard's insistence on doing this. I think it's great, but it's easy to go kill Nazis or Imperial Japanese or the Viet Cong or Middle Eastern terrorists or Russians or whoever you're killing in these games. I think it's going to be a little more controversial to be in Colombia. And we're seeing some of that reaction even in the pre-release environment for Far Cry 6, which takes place in kind of a fictional socialist Cuba style country, in which people are just offended that even takes place there. It has nothing to do with anything. So I feel like Activision's wading into something here, but that might be in the intent. What do you think?
Yeah, we've seen Call of Duty kind of dip into, we'll say, smaller scale conflicts with with Cold War. Not that I never completely finished that game, but there is a lot of smaller scale stuff going on. So to see something Columbia, very cool. This will be a big game, though, in that it's Infinity Ward's Call of Duty, who has firmly cemented themselves as the premier Call of Duty team, in that Modern Warfare, the new Modern Warfare, we'll say, is still very popular today. It's what's the Battle Royale is built off of, and I think will continually, especially be popular after Vanguard comes out, just because I think that people are not hot on the World War II aspect of it. So this will be absolutely huge, the fact that it's Infinity Ward's game. And it'll be curious to see how they adapt Warzone as well. Are we going to get a Warzone 2.0 in this updated Modern Warfare engine? I'm also wondering, too, will they call it Modern Warfare 2, or is it going to be like Modern Warfare, I don't know, Jungle Combat? I don't know, like something different. Like, I don't know.
Coke Wars.
Wars.
I feel like they could do something interesting here from Warzone, because from the Warzone perspective, because I think they've been pretty open about saying that they intend on using it like Epic uses Fortnite in the sense, but they use it in an encapsulated way where they're teasing Fortnite shit in Fortnite, but they're teasing mainline Call of Duty stuff in Warzone. So I expect that we'll continue to see that. And Warzone is just printing money for Activision. I mean, they're thrilled.
You know what would I wish Call of Duty or Activision had the balls to, like, because like when Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War came out last year, or like whenever it was last year, right?
Yeah, Black Ops Cold War was 2020.
I remember just thinking, like, why even have Call of Duty there?
Right, Black Ops Cold War, and give Treyarch their thing, right?
Yeah, I almost think it would be more ballsy for them to, and I would respect it a lot, to just not even, like, just be like, this is Black Ops Cold War, or this is Vanguard,
Modern Warfare,
or this is modern, like, like, I feel like that would be like kind of cool.
Yeah,
it wouldn't
agree.
be a lot.
I agree.
It would be like the most basic, the lowest bar to impress anybody that you could possibly hit. But like, I would be stoked to see that. Just symbolically, I feel like it would be like really cool to just get away from this name that feels so fucking over encumbering. What is it? What's the word? Over
encumbering? Yeah, I feel like in some sense they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, in quotes, because I'm sure they're thrilled either way. But Call of Duty, they must have data that indicates that it just, what we say just has no bearing on anything,
That's true,
because they have their fan base of 20 million people or whatever, and they're gonna buy the game. And as we see, and we'll see in a little while, it's still selling every fucking month. So to each his own, but we'll see more about that. I'm sure that announcement is a long time away, and we'll, as I said, probably see that creeping up in Warzone next year as a prelude. But number 5, somewhat related, the rumors were indeed true. Publisher Electronic Arts has delayed the launch of its upcoming Battlefield game, Battlefield 2042. Originally slated for launch on October 22nd, the game will now launch nearly a month later on November 19th. It will come to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. And a note from the general manager of DICE, the EA-owned team helming the multi-studio production, Oscar Gabrielson, wrote in part, quote, "Building the next generation of Battlefield during a global pandemic has created unforeseen challenges for our development teams. Given the scale and scope of the game, we had hoped our teams would be back in the studios together as we move towards launch. With the ongoing conditions not allowing for that to safely happen, and with all the hard work the teams are doing from home, we feel it's important to take the extra time to deliver on the vision of Battlefield 2042 for our players," end quote. 2042 is the series' 12th core game since the original Battlefield 1942 came to PC in 2002. 2005's Battlefield 2 port, Modern Combat, was the first game to migrate to console when it launched in 2005. I already said that was redundant. Bad Company followed on PS3 in 2008, Bad Company 2 in 2010, Battlefield 3 in 2011, and so on. The series was last seen in 2018 upon the launch of the well-regarded Battlefield 5. EA's aforementioned team DICE, which is also the keeper of the publisher's coveted Frostbite engine on which almost all of its games run, is producing Battlefield 2042 alongside fellow EA teams Criterion, used to do Need for Speed, Ripple Effect, and EA Gothenburg, previously known as Ghost Games. What do you think, Chris?
Well, I mean, that's certainly, I don't know what you could possibly do in like a month.
Probably just bake the first couple patches in, I would assume, before you go gold.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm never going to be too upset about a delay again, just because, like, I'd rather get something finished than, have something rushed out the door. I think that's a universal opinion at this point, or at least it should be. A month is not that much longer. This doesn't really derail my plans all that much. Take your time. I think, I think it's going to be a good game. Like, it looks awesome. So, like, hopefully this extra month is... the thing about these, like, month-long delays, it's like, I just don't know what that last month looks like. Like, I don't know what you're doing that makes it so, like, you needed 1 month, but not, like, 3. But you needed 1 month, but not, like, a week. Like, it's in that weird space where I'm like, what are you, like, what really is happening that you've got to sort out? Sure, I'm sure it, like, makes sense. Like, obviously they're making the decision for that, and I don't think it's going to get delayed again. It's just it's hard for me to wrap my head around, like, what would be a big enough problem to warrant a month delay, but would also be, fixable in that time. Like, it's just a very strange delay period.
My assumption is that when you get a month delay like this is what happened with The Last of Us in 2013, was you kind of just take everything that's remaining in your production schedule and you just stretch it out to just give everyone more time. That's it. Right. So, like, there's nothing additional you're doing. You're just saying, like, the goalpost is now just here, and now everyone doesn't have to fucking murder themselves. But I was thinking, Dustin, that's
fair. Yeah.
I was thinking, though, that this is funny. And I'll throw this one to you, Dustin, just to see what you make of this. But with Battlefield and its delay, I was thinking, and November 19th, I just have this vision, even though DICE is a European studio, I have this vision of these guys just being at their desks on November 19th as the game comes out, and Thanksgiving is like right around the corner, and it's going to be like they're going to get fucking slammed that weekend, right, with new players, and they have to now be there, like that precious 10-day period after a multiplayer game comes out where everything needs to be fixed like right away. They're now going to spend Thanksgiving in the office, and that was the only thing I can think of. But I think the time, like Chris said, is quite valuable. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like it's essential for this game from a sales and longevity perspective to come out this year. Battlefield, Call of Duty, these are Christmas games. These are games that people are unwrapping under the tree, and will, a lot of times these games, their performance early on can dictate their longevity, just in that how much do you hook the initial player base that they go and tell their friends to come play or whatever. So especially with Call of Duty not being as promising this year, I think this game has to make it this year. But at the same time, it's like, if it's broken, you don't want to release that either. So I think giving them, like you said, a little extra time to really polish things up, that might be part of it too, is they're like, what can we do this? This is our chance to really potentially, I don't think they're going to outsell Call of Duty, but really put a dent, we'll say, into Call of Duty's market share. This is the year. Let's make sure we go with the best foot forward.
Yeah. This is the most optimistic people have felt about Battlefield in a while, because Battlefield 5 was just like,
yeah,
that was a time.
Yeah, I said, actually, I'm going to look this up real quick, because I said I'm a little ignorant on this. I said it was well regarded, but I was just looking at the Metacritic scores. Oh, and it has a 73. I was looking at the PC one. That has, why is it so different on PC? Oh, 81 on PC. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
So maybe not that well regarded.
It's not like...
It wasn't Battlefield 1, which was very well regarded, of course.
Yeah. Battlefield 1 was awesome. But, this is their shot. And I think, it would be wise to... It would be wise to get this thing in working order. Very much so.
Indeed. All right, I gotta go pee. You guys can keep talking. You can cut this out. I don't know, but I'm gonna pee my pants.
Okay. No, sure. We're gonna keep rolling. You, Colin, go pee. Right. Chris and I are gonna keep rolling, no matter what, under any circumstances. We do not cut. Colin barely just got out of his chair there. I don't know what's going on.
What is he doing?
His chair was like flopping all over the place, banging against his mic, just absolutely ridiculous. But
he got out of that chair like, I don't know why this makes sense to me, but it looked like as if a really young, spry athlete just teleported into the body of a really old man and doesn't understand why he can't just get up anymore.
Dude, Colin's chair, I've sat in that chair. It doesn't feel like a good posture chair at all. But maybe I don't know what Colin's back situation is like. I feel like I have this Secret Lab chair, and I kind of wish I would have got something a little more ergonomic. But I just constantly, I can't help but sit like a gremlin. And
yeah, it's so easy to sit like hunched over like a fucking goblin.
Yeah.
But you're not supposed to do that. I got rid of my chair when I was moving because it was in shambles anyway. I was like, I'm not gonna pack this thing.
Right.
Although maybe I should have, just so it could have broken and I could have gotten reimbursed.
Yeah, I want to get one of the Herman Miller chairs, but it's just unbelievably expensive. Like, you got to get one used. They're like $1,200. Ridiculous.
There's something about chairs to me where I can't justify spending like a ton of money on a chair. Like I can't do it.
Yeah.
Because it's a fucking platform that you sit on.
They say sitting kills you though. So you should sit on something nice and it will kill you less.
Well, all the more reason to just let it do the job sitting faster.
I sit on the worst chair ever.
Just keep sitting until you fuse.
You guys done?
Oh, we're done. We're ready to go.
My chair got stuck in I have this the plastic thing on the ground and on a carpet.
Oh,
you put the chair on, but it's always in the same position, so it's just falling through it.
You looked like you're having a bit of a rough time.
Yeah, I'm always having a bit of a rough time. It's never, no matter what. All right, thank you boys for waiting for our little intermission. Number 6. This won't be the biggest surprise ever, but Dying Light 2 has been delayed. Initially planned for an early December launch this year, developer Techland now plans to launch the long in development game on February 4th, early in 2022. In a post on its social media feeds, Techland said the following in part, quote, "The team is steadily progressing with production and the game is nearing the finish line. The game is complete and we're currently playtesting it. It is by far the biggest and the most ambitious project we've ever done. Unfortunately, we realized that for us to bring this game to the level we envision, we need more time to polish and optimize it," end quote. The studio promises preview coverage later this year if you're into that sort of thing, and it's worth noting that the original Dying Light, launched on PS4 in 2015, remains one of the console's very best games. As for Dying Light 2, subtitled Stay Human, you recall that the game was announced all the way back in 2018. It was originally planned to launch in 2020 and then pushed into 2021, where it was delayed again, and now delayed a final time into February. Techland, which is also acting as publisher of the game, is a sizable Polish team of more than 400 workers and came to the attention of global audiences upon the release of its renowned open-world zombie game Dead Island, which launched on PS3 in 2011. They're also known for their FPS series Call of Juarez, which first came to market in 2006, and they have more recently gotten to external publishing, most notably helping Torment Tides of Numenera launch in 2017, which comes from In Exile, a team now owned by Microsoft. I'm not so disappointed by this. In fact, we texted about this, right? Where I was saying that this is actually a bit of a relief because now we can really give more time to a couple of the other games that are coming out. And we've waited so long for Dying Light 2. It's like, what is another couple of months? I'm really looking forward to playing it. Chris, was it you that were more recently exposed to Dying Light? That's true, right?
Yeah. I played it earlier this year. I think like a few months back with some Discord friends of mine. And we were going through like co-op because I played through a little bit of the single player when I first tried it and I just wasn't feeling it. It's hard for me to take FPSs seriously in that, especially zombie. Like, I don't know, like something about zombies are like inherently like eye rolly, like I just like, all right, I get it. So, they're dead. Ooh.
Right.
Totally. But, playing it with like friends was like really fun. And like, really like I got a lot more appreciation for the parkour and like the weight of the melee and like, it's a really satisfying game to play. Like, it feels great. And I'm looking forward to this. I'm not bothered by this delay at all. When was it originally? Like early December, right? Or something like that?
Yeah, well, it was 2020, then 2021, then December 7th, 2021, then February 4th, 2022.
Right. Yeah, so that to me is fine because, quite honestly, like those games coming out at the same time. So Dying Light 2 would have come out, I think, like only a few days removed from Halo Infinite, and for me it's like I'm sorry, but like no offense, but like there's no way.
No, of course.
Like there's no way.
I don't think they suffer at all from moving it.
Yeah, they benefit as far as like my play hours go. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad it's getting some extra time. More time is always good, for That's all developers ask for, literally. It's like yeah, if I just had one more, if I had one more week, dude, like
give a little more time.
I could have got that mustache hair on Mario, like looking real photorealistic. If I just had that one more week of time, so just give them that time. I'm all fine with it.
Yeah, it's interesting how they're Polish, like CD Projekt, and it's just a coincidence, but it's just funny how both of these Polish teams like really stormed the castle, and then both kind of fucked up and weren't able to hold as well as like Dead Eye. Remember that Dead Island intro E3 trailer was like probably one of the most popular videos that ever was on IGN, and it was Techland like just really came out of nowhere, and they were wise to get away from Deep Silver early, and that's where Dying Light came from. But well,
that trailer, by the way, my English teacher showed us that trailer because it was that insane at the time.
That's awesome.
It was like a really good trailer. Like it was like my last period of the day, and we did everything. It was like, hey, you guys got to check out this trailer for this video game, and it looks like really cool. And we watched it in class. Like he wheeled out the TV. I've never experienced anything like that, where somebody just wheels out a fucking video game trailer, like in school. Yeah, like that's so insane.
It's like a 70s documentary or something that you're.
Yeah, like it was crazy. So that was like a really big deal. And of course, Dead Island was,
Yeah, I didn't care for Dead Island. What I played.
Yeah, it was a video game, certainly.
It's a cool idea. I did like the idea of there being like a resort that's overcome by zombies.
Yeah.
But what I remember, it just injured my OCD because there's so many containers to open in that game, and I'm like, I can't do this. Like literally an hour in, I'm like, I can't play. I'm not even playing the game right because I'm so upset.
It's just opening containers the whole time. I had a similar problem, and also it was just like ran like really not well. Dying Light was such a massive improvement that it's almost unbelievable that those two games came from the same studio to me.
Yeah, back
like
to back.
they're unrecognizable in my opinion.
Let's go to you with this one, Dustin.
Yeah.
Number 7. Website Silicon Era has dug up some interesting information about Dragon Quest XII, namely that it's being externally developed or perhaps co-developed. The studio in question is Japanese team Hexadrive, which actually has a history with publisher and Dragon Quest owner Square Enix. Silicon Era discovered a recruitment webpage in Japanese that notes it will co-develop the game and is looking to hire for it. They're looking for programmers, designers, and artists and are openly hiring for this specific project. This may come off as a disappointment since Dragon Quest XI came to PS4 back in 2018, and there was hope 12 would be close. This suggests it's probably not. But that Hexadrive has been recruiting for the project, that they have been recruited for the project, even in a support capacity, is a good sign for the team. Indeed, one of their very first projects was the Parasite Eve PSP game, The Third Birthday, which launched in 2010, and the team has long ported external projects for Konami, Capcom, Nintendo, and others. Hexadrive last worked for Square Enix in a support capacity on 2015's Final Fantasy XV. As for Dragon Quest XII, it was announced earlier this year and is promised to be a darker game compared to traditional Dragon Quest fare. The Dragon Quest franchise, which goes all the way back to 1986 in Japan, is arguably the most famous JRPG franchise in Japanese history, though it has been surpassed in global popularity by its one-time rival, Final Fantasy. What do you make of this? I'm a little concerned about this game.
Really?
I don't know why, but I don't like the way they're talking about it. I don't know. There's just something weird about this game to me. Like an older, adult-oriented Dragon Quest, and now you're bringing openly bringing in an external developer that is capable, but certainly not AAA. So it reminds me of CyberConnect making Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. You got to get rid of these guys. So I don't want to be that harsh, but what do you anticipate for Dragon Quest XII, Dustin?
Well, to me, I don't know. I guess my outlook on it, first of all, I'd be curious if there were support studios for Dragon Quest XI. I tried to quickly Google it, but I wasn't able to easily find. But to me, it feels like they're bringing in more hands because they feel like they can really maybe do something special with Dragon Quest. They've been trying for a long time to get Dragon Quest to hit in the West the same way it has in Japan. And Dragon Quest XI, I think, was their most successful attempt yet. And so bringing on a team that they also brought on with a massive game with Final Fantasy 15 shows me that they're just like willing to really make this game hopefully something special. I don't know. Like, to me, it just reads like, yeah, we want to get more hands on this game, not like we're passing off some work to another studio. I mean, it could be that too. I guess there's just two different ways of looking at it. But I like the idea of changing up Dragon Quest. I've said before that I started Dragon Quest XI. It's a little too traditional for me. No disrespect to that or people that like that, but I would be very curious to see them take it in a new direction slightly.
It is very traditional, but it does conflict with what you were saying. I mean, in my opinion, which is that Dragon Quest XI got closest to crossing over. So why wouldn't you change? Why would you change it now? To me, it just, I hate to be this way with this series, but Dragon Quest to me was always just the constant. Like, don't fuck with Dragon Quest. I was even mad with Dragon Quest X. Like, what? I don't know what they were thinking with that, but it's still going. But 1 through 9 and 11, I mean, these are just very traditional games. I think 9 started to get a little more untraditional in some ways, massive sprawling side quests and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. We're a ways away. What I want to see is what that first trailer looks like. Because what I'm wondering is it going to be like that same Toriyama art? Or are you going to change that too? And that would be really dramatic. And I would say that I don't put that past them because I think the logo is completely different from every Dragon Quest logo. So I think from the baseline, the design
I hope
is different.
not. That's one of my favorite aspects of it is the way the characters look. So
it's funny because I could do without that look as long as they kept it turn-based and traditional. Because I go to that for, it's comfort food for me. You know what, you kind of know what you're going to get. And I think that's why I spend so much time gladly with maybe not so gladly with Dragon Quest XI.
Boy, do I agree.
We can throw this one back to Chris, number 8. Don't look now, but it appears Gearbox Software's long dormant Brothers in Arms franchise is coming back. I have the hiccups. Word comes by way of website Exputer, which listened in on an episode of the Game Maker's Notebook podcast, which is released by the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences. During a talk given by Gearbox founder and leader Randy Pitchford, he's quoted as saying in part, quote, "We're working on another Brothers in Arms game, but I'm not saying shit until we have it," end quote. Well, too late. Brothers in Arms is significant for Gearbox since it was the first series incubated internally at the team after years of doing ports and IP work for the Half-Life, Tony Hawk, and Halo licenses. Road to Hill 30, published by Ubisoft and launched on PS2 in 2005, was a well-received World War II FPS that was followed up by Earned in Blood, also on PS2 later that year. Apart from some spin-offs and ports, we last saw Brothers in Arms with a game called Hell's Highway, which launched on PS3 in 2008. Ubisoft and Gearbox tried to bring Brothers in Arms back during the mid-PS3 era, but it was aborted in lieu of Battleborn, which Gearbox made with another publisher, 2K. But we otherwise have very little to work on, other than that the series is far more alive and well on mobile these days. This is a franchise, Chris, people have been very hungry for a long time. I don't know if you guys remember, it was probably 10 years ago when they released that pretty bonkers trailer. Remember when they were in the bar? And everyone was like really excited about it, and that never went anywhere. Now I'm unclear if Ubisoft owns the IP still or not, or if because Gearbox is now with THQ, well, really with Embracer, their own vertical and Embracer. So I'm wondering if they'll be able to do that themselves or if they'll work with Ubisoft. I have no idea about that. That's more business dealings. But what do you think about the comeback of Brothers in Arms, especially because there does seem to be some sort of appetite for World War II shooters, and this might, especially with the different vibe that these games have, it could be something that lives again, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I was always more of a Operation Flashpoint guy.
Dude, Chris, that's insane you say that. That's awesome. I used to love that game too.
Operation Flashpoint was chaos, right? That was a chaos game. I'm gonna look.
No, that was Codemasters.
Oh, Codemasters. Yeah, this is Bohemian. Oh yeah, you're right.
Dude.
Yeah, I really hated that game actually.
It's so difficult because it's like a sim game. I was playing in second grade. I had no clue what I was doing, but it was fun.
Yeah, I couldn't get into, but like I don't know, like this is a weird IP because this is an IP I have very little familiar with, but I have very little experience with. But like I feel like I'm very familiar with it. Like I feel like it was just kind of always around, or like I would always see things about it. Like I know more about it than I should for a game that I've never like even remotely played. And I know people are excited for this, and I remember seeing that trailer and thinking like, this is cool. I'm actually like looking forward to this, even though like again I have no experience. I have no reason to look forward to it. But if this is going to live again, I think it I think it definitely should. I feel like there are definitely oh boy,
what?
There are definitely I don't know. It's got its audience, and I think a new one would be greatly appreciated because I feel like that was like a very interesting kind of take.
All right. We had a little bit of a break there. A little technical issue, but we're all back. Chris went and ate a piece of cheese. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like a little mouse. Scurried off like a little mouse.
Dude, those like slabs of like moist mozzarella, like they're so good.
Oh.
Moist. I like the word moist.
It's
and
a good word.
I also hate it at the same time.
Okay.
All right, let's see here. There it is. There's my document. Let's get into the next question. Or it's not a question, actually. It's a news item. I'm barely hanging on right now. The Square Enix published and Eidos Montreal developed third-person action game Guardians of the Galaxy has officially gone gold. Word comes by way of the developer, which confirmed that the title has finished core development and is ready for publishing, though it will of course be patched leading up to launch, as most games are. Skepticism abounds regarding this game, which is being met with a surprising shrug pre-release. However, it's coming to both PS4 and PS5 as scheduled on October 26th, and will be Eidos Montreal's first release since 2018 when it took over Crystal Dynamics' Tomb Raider series for a spell with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Before that, the studio was best known for its Deus Ex games, 2011's Human Revolution on PS3 and 2016's Mankind Divided in 2016. The studio was also responsible for the Thief revival on PS3 and PS4 in 2014. Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, is a mega popular Marvel brand, perhaps best known for its 2014 film, though it traces its comic existence back to the late 60s. Michael Vecchio wrote in about this game. He says, "What's up, guys? In regards to your discussion on the last episode, why do you think that most of us feel like Crystal Dynamics Avengers and Eidos' Guardians of the Galaxy characters are discount versions of their film counterparts? But it is easy for us to accept Insomniac's Spider-Man. Is it because Spider-Man is a bigger staple in pop culture with so many different portrayals of the character over multiple decades? Is it because Insomniac has already proven themselves to be good storytellers? I'm intrigued to see if Wolverine actually bypasses this uncanny valley-like predicament because it's in Insomniac's hands. And on the DC side of things, I wonder if the Suicide Squad game's portrayal of those characters will be similarly scrutinized where Batman hasn't been. Glad to hear how much of a success the live show meetup was. Thank you." Michael brings up a good point, Chris, or a couple of good points, which is that the skepticism about Guardians of the Galaxy is not shared for Spider-Man and is not shared for Batman, both of which are incredibly well-regarded games. So what do you think about that?
I think there's an obvious answer to this, and it is just due to the fact that we have seen not only several video game and cartoon portrayals of both Spider-Man and Batman, but we've also had several live-action portrayals of them as well. We've had in the last 20 years, we've had 3 live-action Spider-Men. We've had several different people reprising that role in cartoons and video games and what have you. Batman is similar. Like we've seen, what was it? We had Kilmer, we had Clooney, we had Keaton, we had Bale, we had Ben Affleck, and now we got Robert Pattinson. We've seen a lot of these people or these roles inhabited by different people, but the Guardians of the Galaxy we've only seen once, ever, in live action. We've seen them, and even in cartoons and like video games, they're not really common characters. Like they don't show up all that often. So like just to see, and I think it's just this thing where it's like graphics now they seem to lean into realism more than they lean into style. And I think that's one of the reasons why Spider-Man is kind of interesting, because it kind of, Spider-Man isn't like a realistic looking game. It just looks really good. And it's not like super stylized, but you can tell there's like some stylization in Insomniac's art style when it comes to Spider-Man, where in Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, that kind of doesn't exist. Like these characters are very clearly meant to look like real people. Like Peter Quill in the Guardians of the Galaxy game is meant to look like a real person, but the only real person Peter Quill we've ever seen is what's-his-face from Parks and Rec, Chris Pratt.
Yeah,
yeah. And it's really just a matter of like how many times these roles have been visited. Like Batman and Spider-Man have been reprised like several times. These characters like Guardians of the Galaxy, Suicide Squad, these are newer. And so people are a little bit unfamiliar, and they're obviously going to relate any other time they see them with the only other time they've seen them. And I really think that's really all that's at play here. I don't think it's like Spider-Man and Batman are like inherently better, although they are. Let's not mince words. But I really do think it's all in just the exposure of different portrayals that's true in Batman and Spider-Man and Superman, by the way. Like there's no Uncanny Valley Superman in any of these games, even in Injustice or I feel like Superman's definitely going to be in that. What is it? Suicide Squad or Superman kill? What is it? Suicide
Squad kills the Justice League.
Yeah. Like Superman's definitely in that trailer, and nobody looked at Superman and thought, that doesn't look like Henry Cavill. Looks a little weird. No, Superman looks like Superman. Batman looks like Batman. Spider-Man just looks like Spider-Man. But
that's I gotta say, you made a very convincing argument.
Yeah.
Because I never really thought about it from this perspective of simply being so close to the embryonic state of Guardians of the Galaxy as we know it, that this is the first time we're really seeing it as a major audience. Obviously, comic fans know it. I certainly didn't, but
same thing with Avengers, by the way.
Yeah, that's a great point. What do you make of that, Dustin? Do you find that argument as compelling as I do?
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add other than I think that the Guardians of the Galaxy Telltale game that did release. That wasn't one that got canceled, right? Yeah, you can buy it right now. Okay. So I'm wondering if that, like, I'm looking at that now, it didn't have the same complaints that we're seeing regarding this game. And I wonder if it, like I said, they went for like, and what Chris was saying, the very realistic human portrayal. And so I'm looking at the Telltale one, and it looks much more video gamey, cartoony look. And I think that that's also part of the issue, along with what Chris was saying, in that we saw the origin, or at least the public conscience, their origin for Guardians for most people is in that Marvel film.
Yeah. It's very stylized. And, even within that Avengers game, like, you can tell, like, the characters that it was more, where it was a little bit more uncanny valley. Like, with Hulk, we've had Lou Ferrigno, we've had Ed Norton, we've had Mark Ruffalo. Nobody really thought, like, Hulk looked weird in Avengers. We just thought, like, he was just there. But Iron Man, who we've only had one of, and, like, Captain America, who we've really only had one of, like, yeah, they look bizarre. And it's literally just association. I'm sure, like, in 50 years or however many years it'll be before, like, we get many different portrayals of these characters, those video games probably aren't going to look so weird because we have a lot more variations to compare them to. But for right now, it's embryonic. So it's just how it is.
Yeah, and I think, not that I think that this game has, I mean, I guess any game has the potential to do this. Even Square Enix's or Crystal Dynamics Avengers game could have technically done this, but I believe that a video game has the potential to be so good and so meaningful that could become what people see as the iconic version of a character. And I think that the closest we get to that is Arkham. Just because I think that we kind of see that Batman, I think, a little bit in our mind's eye. And so I love the idea of like, what if Spider-Man 2 or Wolverine, what if Wolverine is so iconic as a game that's what they think of? Now everyone thinks of that and not, what's his name that plays Wolverine in the
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, right?
It's going to be unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to think about that. But
Yeah.
I think that one day that will happen, hopefully. And because because you brought up Superman, who I don't like Superman. I don't think Superman's a very compelling character. But when I think of Superman, I think of the cartoon version.
Yeah.
Like the classic Batman style cartoon version.
Yeah, the animated series.
Right, the animated series.
Me too.
Yeah. And like the little flick of, the little hair and all, like, I that's what I think about. And that is it's a canon, I guess, but not mainline Superman. I guess it would be almost as silly though as me saying, like, remember the real stories of Superman or whatever that show was in the 90s?
Smallville?
No, the one before that with
I didn't even know there was one.
No, there was. Let me look this up. I'm gonna look this up in real time. Superman 90s TV show. It was called like Lois and Clark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was starring Dean Cain. That's right, Dean Cain.
Is that
would be
Cain?
like, that would be unbelievable to think, but like someone could have stepped on an ant and suddenly that Superman show is like the iconic Superman, So that's all I'm saying is I want to try to go in because IDOS Montreal is pretty good. So
yeah,
I'm a little bummed that they're not getting a fresher shake. And yet I think it's because I have no familiarity with that movie at all. None. So
the Guardians of the Galaxy movie?
Guardians of the Galaxy, I never saw it. So I have no connection to this film. And that's why I was like watching the trailer laughing. I'm like, oh, this is funny. So
Yeah.
I'm just like,
so
I'm like
that's interesting because then those are going to be your first real associations with those characters. So
yeah,
then maybe
and then
the
we'll see
movie.
if
So then maybe the movie would be weird.
right. And that's a great point. And then we'll see if it works in reverse. So anyway, Guardians of the Galaxy comes to PS4, PS5 quietly, very quietly, October 26th. All right, number 10. We can go through this quick. The MPD Group has released its monthly sales data, and as it does each month, tracking American hardware and software sales across both retail and digital channels. Perhaps not surprisingly, Madden NFL 22 was the best-selling game of August 2021 in the US. Thank God football's back. With Ghost of Tsushima popping all the way back up to the second spot due to its well-received launch on PC. Apparently, it went from 108 to 2 on the list. Let's see here. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War was at 3, Miles Morales at 5, MLB The Show 21 at 10, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart at 13, and Mortal Kombat 11 at 16. When distilled by platform, these were the top 10 best-selling games on PS4 and PS5 for the month of August. Madden NFL 22, Ghost of Tsushima, Miles Morales, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, MLB The Show 21, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Minecraft, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and The Last of Us Part 2. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is the best-selling game of 2021 so far. And here's the crazy thing. MLB The Show 21 is the second best-selling game of the year so far, not including any Xbox sales. So even a la carte Xbox sales, which are probably fairly rare, but I want to give them a shout out for that. Let's see here. Where am I? Resident Evil Village at 3, Miles Morales at 5, Assassin's Creed Valhalla at 10. So those are yearly sales so far. And thankfully, PlayStation also released its data for the PSN in the month of August 2021. So these are digital sales. Madden NFL 21 and Ghost of Tsushima were the two best-selling games on PS5 via PSN for the month. Hades at 3, Aliens Fireteam Elite at 4, Miles Morales at 5, Doom Eternal at 7, Rift Apart at 8, The Show at 10, The Avengers at 15, It Takes Two at 16, Scarlet Nexus holding on at 20. And then over on PS4, things were far more boring and predictable with Madden NFL 22, Grand Theft Auto 5, and Minecraft rounding out the top 3. Other interesting additions include Far Cry 5 at 4, Friday the 13th at 5. That game is silently being played by a lot of people, I think.
Yeah.
And might be the reason that Ilphonic is kind of hanging out. Gang Beasts at 9 and God of War at 12. Beat Saber remains the most popular PSVR game as it is each month, while Splitgate has dethroned Fortnite, Call of Duty Warzone, Apex Legends, and Rocket League as the most played free-to-play game across platforms, fresh off its $100 million investment. And finally, a wrap-up, number 11, the official PlayStation blog reports puzzle adventure game Bonfire Peaks comes to PS4 and PS5 on September 30th. So-called Rhythm FPS BPM bullets per minute comes to PS4 on October 5th. Chris, that's a game for you, man.
No, I played it.
It's awesome.
Okay, cool.
It's so
yeah,
good.
They sent me like a code a while ago, like before I even knew what it was, and I was like,
awesome.
Oh, this is sick. It's really cool.
Like
I played it. Yeah, I played it on PC because that's where they sent me and I think, in fairness, it does feel like one of those PC kind of shooters. Like you can just kind of tell, like with the way that aiming works. But it's really cool, like a really interesting. I'm terrible at it though, which sucks. But you should all check that out, like if you're interested in FPS and rhythm games, because it's interesting.
Yeah, that's a game that I know I'm not going to get to right away, but I will buy it to support them right away and then keep it in the catalog for later.
Yeah, it's
and
cool.
action RPG Asterigos comes to PS4 in spring of 2022 with a native PS5 port to follow in fall of 2022. Website Push Square reports adventure game Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 comes to PS5 on November 16th with a PS4 iteration following at an unknown time. FMV game Bloodshore comes to PS4 and at some point in November. Pikmin-inspired game Tinykin comes to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 in the summer of 2022. Website Gematsu reports timed Xbox console exclusive The Wild at Heart launches on PS4 on November 16th. Metroidvania Awala's Legacy comes to PS4 at an undetermined point this year. So-called horror cooking game Happy Hunters Burger Farm comes to PS4 and PS5 at an undetermined point later this year. That game sounds really weird. Again, it's called Happy's Humble Burger Farm. Couch co-op game Spider Heck comes to PS4 and PS5. That's a great name. Comes to PS4 and PS5 at an undetermined point in 2022. Action game Magician's Dread Force of the Soul comes to PS4 at an undetermined point in the future. And third-person action games Blood Rain Revamped, get it? And Blood Rain Revamped 2 are both coming to PS4 and PS5 at an unknown time. The website also reports fighting game Phantom Breaker Omnia has been delayed and will now come to PS4 in early 2022, while the Australian Games Rating Board has leaked the existence of yet another one of Chris's favorite Atelier JRPGs, this one called Atelier Sophie 2, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Dream. And coming to unknown platforms, though PS4 is a very safe bet. And finally, publisher Ubisoft revealed that its upcoming reimagining of its Rocksmith guitar and bass learning game Rocksmith Plus has been delayed and will now launch on PS4 and PS5 in 2022.
Hmm.
So that's it, boys. Let's get into the weekly tradition. 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience on Patreon. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. Let's start with Kieran Delaney. He says, hey, CC and D, what is your read on Kena Bridge of Spirits? The game looks stunning with its Pixar-level visuals, but I've seen almost no preview coverage from any major outlet, and the game releases in less than a week. Should we be worried? I thought for sure we'd at least see something from it in its last week's showcase. Love the show and keep up the good work. I thought we would too. They've been pretty open about teasing this game from Ember Labs. I think it looks great. I don't know, Dustin, if this is being victimized by Deathloop, and maybe deals that they have to work on with that, but they seem so eager to talk about this game. And then we aren't seeing very much when it seems to matter most. I'm certainly going to buy it and play it, but I'm wondering if there's something to be worried about here, perhaps.
I'm seeing that they did previews back in June. Like I just searched quickly on Google and it looks like GameSpot and IGN all have previews out. I would imagine that people are probably playing this game right now as we record on the review cycle. So I don't know. I've honestly kind of gone dark on this game just because it was one that I knew I was going to play, but this is the first outing for this studio. So they have already delayed it once. So I don't know. I honestly don't have a read on it just because I saw there was a gameplay trailer or some gameplay footage available and I just didn't even watch it because I knew that it was one that I was going to check out.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think there was that late 2020 trailer that they released that was like really stunning, and I didn't need to see much more of it, and I have confidence in this game, but I do find it a little perplexing, and I don't know why you wouldn't want to really ramp up to it. Like, look at what they did, and Chris, we'll throw it to you. It was getting comical how much they were talking about Deathloop. People were like, what are you doing? And I had to start tuning out because I didn't want to ruin the game for myself. I mean, other than what we had to watch for the show. And Kena is kind of experiencing the opposite, where they were eager to show it. They had a state of play and all the rest, and then we don't see it now. And maybe it's going to be up to us, should the game be good, to try to help get the game out to more people. But what do you think about the silence leading up to its launch?
I think it's concerning. Like I straight up, until I read this question, didn't realize that it was coming out that soon. Is that real? A week?
Yeah, a week. I think it's let me see. I got to look, but I think it's September 30th. No, I'm sorry. I'm way off on that. September 21st.
That is crazy. That's concerning. Like, I don't know. Like, to me, that's like really worrying. I don't know if, I mean, they did do preview in June, apparently, which is, good. It means they're not hiding it or anything, but it likely is just kind of like a scheduling conflict, or just like maybe like, this is, but you'd think like this is your game, right? More so than Deathloop is, so you'd think that you definitely want to show it more, or at least alongside it at the very least. That is, I don't know. I don't even know what to make of that. That's very strange. That we're on the eve of this thing coming out, and we've not seen much of it.
I'm of the same mind, just because, again, the math just doesn't add up to me. I mean, you start talking about a game and ramping it up when it's about to come out. Now, maybe we're just speaking about it too soon, but we're recording this on September 16th, and it's, mum's the word. So we'll find out, but I'm looking forward to it, and we'll have more to say about it in the coming weeks. That's another game that we'll be doing a Sacred Symbols Plus episode on, no doubt. Christopher Middling wrote in and said, hey, CDC, how do you feel about the brief, nearly split-second nod to Resident Evil 4 in the new PlayStation trailer? Is it safe to assume PlayStation has found their next killer timed PS exclusive, maybe something to look forward to at the VGAs or this rumored PSX? So I don't know if you guys noticed this, but apparently, and Dustin, I'll kick it over to you, there's a symbol pretty prominently, actually, if you just freeze it, in the video, that kind of sizzle reel that they put together at the beginning of the showcase last week. And there's a blatant Resident Evil 4 reference. And people think that this is potentially referencing the game we know is in development, but perhaps a reference to the fact that this might even be some sort of exclusive or timed exclusive, like a money hat, as it were. What do you make of that? Did you see it? And do you think that it clearly is teasing RE4. So I guess the only question is will it be theirs or not?
Right. Well, this has been PlayStation's strategy this generation. And I remember, I think it was on an episode of Ham when I was talking to ACG or our friend Carrick, that a lot of people, you got to remember that Sony was trying to buy the exclusive rights to Starfield before that deal went through at Bethesda. That's a big, big, high dollar deal. And then it didn't happen. And it's not like that money disappears, right? I'm sure that when that didn't happen, they're like, okay, let's go line up some other deals. And so you got to imagine that this something high profile like this was definitely on the table. They're knocking on a lot of big developers, big publishers' door and saying like, hey, we're willing to put up a high dollar amount to get that exclusivity. And I think it's really paid off in a lot of ways. Not that I like it from a consumer standpoint. It feels, it feels weird to just pay to keep other people from playing it. But from a business standpoint, it makes complete sense to do that. I mean, look at Final Fantasy VII Remake. I mean, that's been huge. And now Final Fantasy 15, or not 15, 16 is going to be huge as well, you have to assume. So yeah, I 100% think that this very well could be a tease, and it would just be in line with the strategy so far.
Chris, I know you have a fondness for Resident Evil 4 like I do.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel? How do you feel about the possibility of this being a PlayStation 5 exclusive potentially, or timed exclusive?
I think it's very possible. I mean, Sony is not. They've been pretty bullish about getting exclusives and even timed exclusives, where even sometimes it, we'll get into it in a later question, but even in some times where you would assume where, like, in some cases where it just wouldn't make sense to even have timed exclusivity to those properties or to those games. So the idea that like Resident Evil 4 Remake might be timed exclusive, that seems very, very plausible, and I would argue particularly likely. If it's proper exclusive, I think that would be awful. That would suck, because that would be a little bit confusing.
Yeah, I don't think Capcom would do that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So, but yeah, timed exclusivity is in my opinion very, very likely.
All right, let's see here. We have a letter from Andy Capt who says, "Hello, good sirs. Does the word great get used too often? Last week I heard Dustin refer to Cyber Shadow as great and Colin refer to Hollow Knight as great. While I do think these games are very good, shouldn't great only be used for games such as BioShock or The Last of Us? Well, I know this is subjective to each individual. We must have some type of middle ground." Chris, why don't you sound off on this? I totally fundamentally disagree with this. I think there are 2D games that are many 2D games that are great. I mean, I don't think great is a boundary in which needs to be crossed, but there are hundreds of games across that boundary. It's not like it's like that rare to be great. So of course some of them are going to be 2D.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to misconstrue Andy's argument or maybe read too much into it, but like I'm getting the sense, and he can write in if maybe I'm like misinterpreting, but it feels like there's this idea, and not only that he has it, but I feel like it's a wider idea among a lot of people, that like 2D isn't as good inherently as 3D, and if like a 2D game is to be considered among the greatest, well, how could that be possible? Because there's so many 3D games where you could do all sorts, you could move in so many directions, man. Like I don't know, like this feels like shaming 2D games a little bit to me, because like I think Cyber Shadow is genuinely great. Hades, not 2D necessarily, isometric game. I think Hades is phenomenal. I wouldn't even say just great. Like that is a sincerely incredible game, better than a lot of 3D games that I've played, probably most of them, especially in the last like year or so. So I just don't agree that this weird just because a game is 2D doesn't mean it like it can't be called great. Because great is all about like, design and like how it makes you feel when you play it, and like how competent it is and how engaging it is. And Cyber Shadow is, in my opinion, like, I don't know, personally, I know this goes to, each and every person's individual preference, but like I was far more engaged and having far more fun with Cyber Shadow than I was playing The Last of Us Part 2, personally. But like, so does that mean, like, what does that mean? Does that mean like The Last of Us 2 isn't like, I don't know. It's just bizarre. This line that's drawn.
Well, I was gonna say this goes into the definition of fun, right?
Right.
Because I might agree. Cyber Shadow is more fun than The Last of Us Part 2, right? I don't know that maybe this is just me, but I didn't go into The Last of Us Part 2 and saying like I hope I have fun.
Right.
I don't know. I just don't know. See, this is what's so fun about these conversations is the subjectivity of even these very definitions. But Dustin, what do you make of this this argument? Because he brings you up here. You brought up Cyber Shadow, and obviously Dustin and I both agree with you on that assessment. I think Hollow Knight's even arguably better than great, but I just don't think it's that far of a bar. We're not talking about 10s or even 9s.
Right. I think Andy, I mean, I'm getting a different impression from his question that he's talking about not necessarily like 2D or 3D type games, but more so just using the word like the great, the semantics of the word great. Like, I don't know. To me, great is a pretty overall bland. I mean, to be fair, he's right. Bland term. Like you say, I had a great time or we had a great dinner or whatever. To me, I feel like when he's saying like, great to me is like, I really enjoyed that. That's my way of saying I really enjoyed that. You'll know, like if we're talking about BioShock, I'm going to say BioShock is a masterpiece. It is a influential landmark game. Like I'm not just going to use the word great when referring to BioShock. It'll be much more than that. But also language just comes down to the person. I've met people that everything is amazing. And it's like, okay, was it actually amazing or was it good? That just is dependent. And I think he points that out. It's just subjective, like you said, to the individual.
Yeah. But the idea of like, what did he say? Like very good, like something needs to be very good instead, or like that we should use, I don't know.
Yeah,
like I feel like,
it should only be used for games as BioShock. Or Last of Us.
Yeah. Well, I agree with Dustin. I don't think great is enough for BioShock. I don't think great is enough for Hades. There's plenty of games that like you could just go, and I think there are very good games. I think when I think of like a very good game, I think of like, oh my god, I think of like Left 4 Dead. Like Left 4 Dead's very good. Like I wouldn't say that Left 4 Dead is great. Like I have a fun time playing it, and it's like really, it's a staple of the industry, and it's stuck around for a very, very long time. But like you play that game, it's like, you're just walking around shooting. Like it's not like crazy amazing. It's just very, very good. And it's remained very, very good for a very, very long time. But like, I don't know. I feel like we're just getting into a weird semantic argument because none of this really matters.
Well, that's what this whole podcast is. It's just one long, years long semantic argument.
Yeah.
That's why we're dying.
bout of tremendous sadness. What'd you say?
I said that's why we're dying. This is the exponential death. This show's going to be over in like a year and a half, and not because we're ending it, because we're going to be dead.
Yeah, one of us is going to die, no doubt. Ilya Starovarov wrote in and said, "Hey CDC, long time, first time. My first episode of Beyond was Goldfarb's last one in 2014. Happy to be one of the Patreons now and starting to dig into the various goodies. Thank you. It is pretty commonly accepted that the DualSense is one of the standout features for PS5, and personally, I agree. Besides the obvious reason for Sony wanting to sell more units, why is the DualSense not supported for PS4? After all, it is not a hardware feature like an SSD, but simply a Bluetooth controller. And do you think that with all the support we seemingly saw for Crushed and games, it is weird for the contingent not to have also demanded this?" I've thought about this, although I imagine that there's got to be some reason. Dustin, I'm curious. You're kind of technically proficient, so I mean you both are, but is it possible? Do you think they get DualSense working backwards? Because I assume they got the PS4 controller working on PS3, as I recall. So I'm pretty positive about that. So do you think that they'll do that with this time around? And would you like to see that? Because I think that would be cool, just so you can put some controllers away. I have like all these controllers out on my entertainment center, and just for clutter, it would be cool to say like, I can just have a couple PS5 controllers out. You just plug them in to sync them, and that would basically be it. So I'm curious what your thought is on that.
Well, I feel like let's see. They mention here that it's one of the standout features and a selling point. So to me, it's kind of like, yeah, maybe at some point they could do that. But I also don't with PS5 playing PS4 games. I just don't understand why they would. I don't think they would put in the effort to do that. It is actually what is kind of interesting. I just saw this the other day, is that we're seeing certain games get DualSense features on PC. In fact, I think I saw that Deathloop, you can connect a DualSense and get the haptic triggers and stuff on PC. I'm going to have to make sure and verify that, but I'm pretty sure I saw that. I think also the Metro Exodus update got DualSense support on PC. So we are seeing some of that, which is very interesting. But yeah, Sony knows right now that DualSense is one of the best things, or at least one of the things people like the most about PlayStation 5. We even heard Phil Spencer say that they would like something like that for Xbox. So I can understand them wanting to keep that close exclusively to that platform for the time being.
What do you make of it, Chris?
Yeah, I feel like I agree, like, entirely. Like, that I don't see why they would put the effort in if that's like the main thing that's setting them apart, you know? And also, just like, is the idea of like, oh, you want the actual controller to just be backwards compatible on PS4? Is that like
I
the
think they
premise
just want to be able to plug in the PS5 controller and the PS4 like you could the PS4 controller and the PS3.
Yeah,
And I think what ended up happening was the touchpad became select, if I recall.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think there's really no reason for them to do that. I feel like they want people to get the new thing. And people who are on PC probably aren't going to get it anyway. You know, like, a lot of PC people are like pretty, especially now that we know like a lot of these games are coming to PC. They're just like, you know, I'm happy on PC and I can just, like, you know, we all know PC people. They're very happy.
Unfortunately.
They're very happy with their fucking ray tracing $4,000 graphics cards. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to buy some machine just because it has a controller. So I feel like giving them access to that technology doesn't really eat into any of their, you know, profits, really. I don't know. Just seems like it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I looked it up real quick. Deathloop does have DualSense support on PC. Very interesting.
And hey, it's tangentially related, but in working backwards, I've noticed some games. I think one of the grand strategy games that just came recently, full keyboard and PC or mouse support on PS5. So it's starting to go both ways.
Wait, which one?
It was like one of the Kingdom something games that they just announced on PlayStation Blog recently. It has like full mouse and keyboard support.
That's insane.
Which is great. I would love for them to really start integrating that more, but we'll see. Moms Like Me wrote in and said, Colin, my dearest boy, you often bring up how PlayStation dropped What Remains of Edith Finch, allowing it to go multi-platform. Did Sony drop the ball with this move, where What Remains of Edith Finch ended up with the same Metacritic score as Journey? Can you think of any other time Sony has dropped the ball by dropping a game that would end up being great? No, the games that they drop typically aren't great. They dropped Remember Me, famously. Wild, we've talked about recently. They wouldn't allow it to come to market, etc. But What Remains of Edith Finch and Giant Sparrow, I fundamentally disagree about that game. Like, I don't care that much about that game. I don't, like, when you think about the Unfinished Swan, their first game, because remember, Giant Sparrow was under a 3-game deal. Sony released them. And I actually think the Unfinished Swan is like a far superior game to Edith Finch.
Whoa.
Personally. What do you think, Dustin?
I love What Remains of Edith Finch, and I started Unfinished Swan and actually never finished it. So maybe my opinion is invalid, but
there's nothing like the Unfinished Swan.
That's true. But I feel like there's nothing like, well, I guess you could say that it's a narrative walking simulator, but the story of What Remains of Edith Finch is so incredibly unique, and a lot of the ways it tells the story, especially, like, man, there's a this is such a weird thing to say out of context. Anyone who plays the game knows the bathtub memory is absolutely incredible, unlike anything I've ever played in a game. So I actually feel like, yeah, they kind of did fuck up, in my opinion. I think they're fine without it, but I think What Remains of Edith Finch is an incredible game.
You might recall that, I don't know, you have to be a real PlayStation nerd to remember this. I wonder if you guys can dig deep and even remember it, but you may recall that Edith Finch was announced as Edith Finch, not as What Remains of Edith Finch, by Giant Sparrow on their blog without permission when they were still with PlayStation as a second party indie studio, and they got reprimanded in a lot of trouble for that, and it was taken down immediately. Now, of course, I found it and wrote about it, and was certainly responsible for fucking that up for them, I think, partially. I mean, I'm going to write about things that are out there, but if people like old PlayStation, I don't know, interesting happenings, go back and read a little bit about that, because that was crazy. I had never seen a team do that before. And it showed me that they like had somehow eluded having any relationship with Sony PR or anything like that. Because when I saw that, I'm like, how do you think that you can do that? Like, are you out of your mind? You just announced your next game without any permission. And I'll always remember that. And I think it started there. The decay of that relationship started there. And, but I knew those guys. And I think I said, I didn't end up applying, but I almost applied to Giant Sparrow as an associate producer. When I was looking to leave IGN. Yeah. All right. And finally, Matthew Ramsar wrote in and said, with a franchise like KOTOR now exclusively timed on PlayStation, is it time for Sony fanboys to shut up about Bethesda games with a history on PlayStation like Elder Scrolls, Wolfenstein, etc.? So, of course, this goes back to the classic conundrum of Microsoft saying or Bethesda saying games with a heritage, and then everyone's like, well, these games have a heritage. But that's not really true. KOTOR, I think, is a very weird move. Great for Sony, but that game has no PlayStation heritage. In fact, you can't play KOTOR or KOTOR 2 on PlayStation at all, ever. So, Chris, what do you make of this in comparison to the Bethesda game stuff? Sony fans saying they're lacking these more role-playing game type Bethesda products, BioWare type products. Now they're getting one. Do you think that this carves into that a little bit?
I don't know. Like, to me, this just feels like, first of all, it's timed exclusive, so it's not the same. It's not the same as what we're assuming what will happen with, Doom and Elder Scrolls and Wolfenstein, which is the immediate assumption here going forward is that they will be console exclusives and coming to PC, but not to PlayStation platforms, which makes sense. I don't know. Like, to me, it just feels like this is not that big of a deal. Like, oh, you have to wait a year for KOTOR to come out. You're going to get it. You're going to get it, and you're going to get Starfield and Elder Scrolls and all these other Bethesda games. Like, whereas PlayStation isn't going to get those other titles. Presumably, we're working under a lot of assumptions right now. But I don't know. Like, KOTOR, it is weird that they went for KOTOR, but I see why they did, because their first party or their specific, their exclusive lineup, timed or not, doesn't have a lot of Western RPGs. Like, they don't have a lot of that. And right now, Microsoft has a ton. Like, and they're going to be rapid firing these things. So to me, it's just like, it makes sense. I understand it's a weird move, but it made sense for Sony to go after this. I think it's classy that it's timed, even though that's probably not what they would have wanted. It comes across better to the public that that's the outcome of that deal. And I don't know, this just feels like a lot of people fighting over weird shit that I can't really care that much about. You know what I mean?
No, I totally understand. Yeah. I mean, I agree. We do get into, I agree. I mean, we get into the minutia. I said this recently. I feel like fanboyism is just ratcheting up hard right now. And I don't understand why. Like, it just feels very old right now. And I thought we were kind of past this, where like you could be a fan of a console. I'm a huge PlayStation fan. I run a massive PlayStation podcast. Of course, I'm a PlayStation fan. But the fanboyism is a turnoff. I have to mute so many threads, just annoying people on all of them. But I understand exactly what you mean. But I'm curious, Dustin, what you take of this KOTOR timed exclusivity. I also wonder like what the nature of the timed exclusivity is, because I just keep noting that Final Fantasy VII Remake, something happened there. And we don't really know like what it is, but something happened there. And I wonder if, we were talking about Alan Wake that in the other direction last week, like something happened there. Right. So I don't know. I mean, I think this KOTOR timed exclusivity is pretty great for PlayStation, but I do agree with Chris. While PlayStation definitely would want it exclusively, I think it was classy of Disney not to do that.
Right.
Because I think that would be kind of fucked up. and I just want to point out, I don't get off on people losing games like a lot of other people do for some reason. Yeah. So
to be honest,
it's a very weird thing.
I don't understand Matthew's point here about KOTOR on play. Is it time for Sony fanboys to shut about Bethesda games with a history? Like, to me, these are like two very, very different situations. I mean,
I think he's talking about not the situations, but the games themselves, like the style of game.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. To me, it's just like
That's what
KOTOR. I mean, when KOTOR came out, it was LucasArts was independent still, and now it's Disney,
Right.
and Disney has a relationship with Sony, and so I mean, we are seeing Disney now with Indiana Jones on the Microsoft side as well, but to me, this is just like a money deal. Like, Sony came in and was like, yeah, we're willing to pay money. We were talking about this earlier. They just came in with their checkbook and was like, what's it going to take to get this for, a year or whatever. So as far as, comparing it to the Bethesda deal, that just seems so different. Maybe I'm not understanding, but
no,
yeah.
he's saying, I just want to make sure you understand.
I want to understand.
He's pointing out that Bethesda games, I don't know why he used Wolfenstein, but he's saying that Bethesda games that have a history on PlayStation, that was the argument for why isn't Fallout coming? Why isn't The Elder Scrolls coming? And all these kinds of things. We had The Elder Scrolls 5. And he's saying, well, KOTOR has a heritage only on Xbox, and it's now coming to PlayStation. It is the exact opposite. That's what he said.
Right.
So it's just a point. I mean, I don't think it's a very
it's
important
worded. It's worded a little strangely, and Wolfenstein in there really throws me off. I think.
Me too. Just because Wolfenstein has no more provenance on one console or the other, to be honest. I mean, they those going all the way back to the first reimaginings under Activision were on all consoles, right? I wrote the guides for them on PS2 and on Xbox during that era. So
yeah,
right.
Wolfenstein kind of has no heritage on console.
This kind of thing just happens, man. Like, I don't know. Like, you could argue Wolfenstein has more heritage on fucking Nintendo, but I don't know. Like, I think there are
because Wolfenstein 3D was on SNES. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that is a good point. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, to me, it's just like this is a deal that happens all the time. Like, Microsoft never got Final Fantasy. Oh, and then they had Final Fantasy for a little bit. Now they don't have it again. It's like, all right, it was whatever. Like, this is just something that's just going to keep happening. And at this point, I feel like what's confusing about this too is that, like, I feel like we're in a weird place right now where, like, we understand now the industry is old enough that we can look back and realize that, like, things don't stay exclusive forever, man. Like, you will get to play the thing you want to play at some point. Like, you will. This isn't like the 2000s where it's like Halo's never coming to PC. Or like whatever, or like all these like, oh, Uncharted, you're not gonna see that go anywhere. And like, oh, look, Uncharted on PC. Like, wow, how cool. We're living in such an open games industry now. Like, especially with like streaming and like all this other weird shit, like PlayStation Now and like the xCloud or whatever the hell, where you don't even need to own these consoles kind of to play these things. All you need to do is like pay some like random subscription fee, and then you have access to this shit. Like, you can play, I'm pretty sure you could play a lot of PS3 games through PS Now on PC right now.
Yes.
And you don't have to fork out a bunch of money for a machine. Like, I don't know. It's just don't be so fucking mad.
Stop being so mad. That's our closing message as we wrap up this austere episode of Sacred Symbols of PlayStation podcast. Chris, do you have any closing comments?
I don't know. I don't want to end the show like all like sad and lackadaisical, but I do want to say, we lost a really amazing comedian over the last few days. Norm Macdonald, who is like one of my favorite comedians of all time, arguably like one of the best, and I would recommend that everybody just like goes online and like watches his like late night show appearances because they're all like really good. But that's really all I'm thinking about lately. Yeah,
RIP for sure. I mean, he is a legend, and I might have said it on the show, but I'm very dry. I'm the straight man often, obviously, and he is the straight man in a lot of situations. And so I've always taken a lot of cues and inspiration from him in my own comedy, I guess, and my own stylings. And I often think about, I don't know I think it might have been the roast of Bob Saget, but he was there and he was just reading a newspaper the entire time, and it was fucking hysterical. Like, he wasn't paying attention to anything that was going on. And whenever someone made fun of him, he would just look down from his newspaper to look over and then just like look back at his newspaper. It was the best. It was absolutely dedicated to it, you know?
Yeah. What was it? It was like, they say Bob Saget has the face of a flower. Yeah. Cauliflower. And then he was like reading all these like old jokes. It was like out of something called like Jokes for the Retirement Home or something, and he played it like super straight, and only the comedians were laughing, and the audience was like, "What the fuck is this?" An incredible dude, and I don't know, just watch those clips because you won't be disappointed. They're all so funny.
Absolutely legendary. Dustin, closing comments.
Not really. Just that excited to play more games this weekend, and just as an update, our friend Lockmort is working on an edit of the live show. Not like a wacky edit, but we want to make sure it's done right. And so a lot of people have been asking me when it's coming, and I don't want to rush him. I want to let him take his time. Yeah. We're going to make it like real nice. It's got multiple camera angles, not crazy, but just want to let everybody know it's being worked on. It is coming, and it's going to be great.
Cool.
Yeah. My parents have been hassling me about that. They've been like, "Yo, when am I gonna see this?" Like, I don't know. I'm not editing this thing.
Yeah.
Probably gonna take a minute.
A few weeks, I would assume. We'll put it on Patreon first. So if you're a patron over there, you'll get it. And we'll probably just replace a Sacred Symbols Plus episode one of those weeks. Give me a fucking break, okay? Thank you. All right, boys. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support of our show. On Patreon, free feeds, wherever. We thank you so much, and we'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols and all things Last Stand Media. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.